Chapter 40, 398. In the void behind them, 5 figures could be vaguely seen. Their auras were not obvious, but they could see that they were faster than them, now that they were in the taboo ocean, and were faster than them. Except for Qin Feiyang, who controlled 2 wills of the heavenly Tao, there was no one else. "My lord, what should we do?" The group of generals panicked. Even the people of the central dynasty had suffered great losses in the hands of this group of people. Even Dong Qingyuan, who had a pinnacle sovereign divine weapon, was not a match for these people, let alone them. The underworld king's face was also gloomy. He originally thought that Qin Feiyang and the others would not chase after them, but he did not expect that not only did they catch up, but they also caught up so quickly. "Underworld king, stop! Let's talk." Qin Feiyang's voice sounded. It was very gentle, without any killing intent. "My lord," the group of generals looked at the underworld king and begged, "why don't we stop and talk to Qin Feiyang and the others? As long as we have a good attitude, they will definitely show mercy." "Show mercy? Don't be naive. They chased after us from afar. Will they let us go so easily? Besides, if a good attitude is useful, the oceanic race and the beast race would not have been exterminated by them." The underworld king snorted. But the group of generals wanted to say something, but hesitated. Suddenly, an old man said, "My lord, why don't we pretend to be polite with them first? And after we escape this disaster, we will think of a way to enter the central dynasty." "That's a good idea. This is the only way now. If we continue to run, we will definitely anger them. If we don't run and fight them head-on, we will not be their match." The other generals nodded. No matter what, they had to save their lives first. "Okay." The underworld king pondered for a while and nodded decisively. This was indeed the most reliable method at present. The group of people stopped and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the others. They were secretly vigilant. They really stopped. Seeing this scene, Madman's expression was quite astonished. "If they don't stop, they will die. Do they dare not stop?" The white-eyed wolf smiled contemptuously. When he thought about it, he was actually quite emotional. When they first entered the divine kingdom, they could only flee when faced with the various major races. But now, even if it was the sea beasts of the taboo ocean, when they saw them, they would have to flee at the mere sight of them. Whoosh! Very soon, Qin Feiyang led the 4 of them to the opposite side of the underworld king. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I've heard so much about you seniors. Now that I've met you, you're indeed impressive." However, when these words fell into the ears of the tranquil Ocean King and the others, they seemed to be mocking them. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that they were in a difficult situation. But this Qin Feiyang actually said that they were impressive. If this wasn't sarcasm, then what was? However, even though he was displeased, he didn't dare to show it. The king of the underworld said with a straight face, "I have long heard of your names, little brothers." The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other with amusement in their eyes. Weren't these words spoken against his heart? "Senior, you flatter us." Qin Feiyang waved his hand with a smile and asked curiously, "Senior, you look travel-worn. Where are you going?" "We're not going anywhere. We just have nothing to do, so we're strolling around." The king of the underworld laughed. "Then you seniors are really in a good mood." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "Same to you. Little brothers, didn't you also come to our taboo ocean for a stroll?" The king of the underworld ocean said. "Ha!" Qin Feiyang laughed. This king of the underworld ocean was really interesting, especially his ability to pretend to be confused. He wasn't careless at all. "Little brother, what are you laughing at? Are my words very funny?" The king of the underworld ocean was suspicious. No, this junior is quite puzzled." This junior and the others have been in the divine kingdom for so many years, and it seems that we haven't incurred any grudges with you seniors. But why do you seniors target us again and again?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, a trace of suspicion on his face. Target? The king of the underworld ocean was slightly stunned and puzzled. Little brother, why do you say that? Last time, when we entered the taboo ocean to pursue Dong Tianqian, there were sea beasts that informed him of our whereabouts. This time, when we entered the taboo ocean to pursue Dong Dayuan and the others, there were actually sea beasts that informed him of our whereabouts. Senior, shouldn't you give us an explanation for this matter? Qin Feiyang said. The king of the underworld ocean's pupils shrank. He pretended to look at Qin Feiyang in surprise and asked, Is that true? Yes. Dong Dayuan was right next to me. Qin Feiyang nodded, turned to look at Dong Dayuan, and said with a smile, Tell me, who tipped you off that we entered the taboo ocean to pursue you? A sea beast. At that time, he also said that he came under orders. Dong Dayuan said truthfully. When the king of the underworld and the others heard this, they suddenly panicked. Qin Feiyang looked at the king of the underworld and the others and said with a smile, Seniors, what do you mean by under orders? Can you explain it for me? Brother Qin, there must be some misunderstanding. I have never given such an order. The king of the underworld hurriedly explained, then turned to the group of generals behind him and asked, Did you give this order? No, absolutely not. Before this, we didn't know that Brother Qin and the others had entered the taboo ocean. The group of generals shook their heads. They had to admit that each of them was a movie king. They lied without blushing at all. The king of the underworld looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed. It seems that there really is some misunderstanding. Maybe some blind beast king of our taboo ocean tipped them off without permission. Brother Qin, don't worry. We will definitely investigate this matter and give you a satisfactory explanation. There's no need for that. This junior doesn't care about such little tricks. But now this junior really does have something that I need your help with. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. This sentence had a deep meaning. It meant that the king of the underworld and the others should stop playing these little tricks. It was just that he didn't know if the king of the underworld and the others understood. The king of the underworld smiled and said, Brother Qin, please tell us. As long as we can do it, we will definitely do it. Qin Feiyang said, Dong Dayuan and Dong, you have 10 accomplices. I hope that seniors can help me think of a way to gather them so that we can catch them all in one fell swoop. Hearing this, the king of the underworld and the others were shocked. How ruthless! From Qin Feiyang's words, it was not difficult to judge that not only Dong Dayuan, but even Dong Yi had fallen into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. But even so, he still did not intend to let the others go. This kind of person was indeed not to be provoked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I believe that this should not be difficult for seniors. This, the king of the underworld frowned and hesitated. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, Brother Qin, this is indeed a little difficult for us. You also know that they are all from the Central Dynasty. How would we dare to offend them? If the people of the Central Dynasty find out that we helped you kill these people, won't we suffer their revenge? The king of the underworld said with a panicked expression, Don't worry about that. As long as you don't say anything and we don't say anything, the people of the Central Dynasty won't know. Qin Feiyang chuckled. But it's really risky. Our taboo ocean is so close to the Central Dynasty. It's fine if they don't know, but once they know, our taboo ocean will definitely suffer a destructive blow. The king of the underworld said, My lord, just agree to it first. If they are angered later, we will all die here. The group of generals was extremely anxious. Didn't they agree to feign civility and cooperate with the other party first? Why were they fighting now? What good would it do them? I know what I'm doing. There's no need for you to say anything. The king of the underworld secretly glared at the group of generals, then looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled apologetically. Brother Qin, I know that you may be a little angry after hearing what I said, but please understand our difficulties. I understand. Of course I understand. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Hearing this, the king of the underworld's eyes flashed with a trace of pride. It seemed that this strategy of acting pitiful and gaining sympathy was quite effective. The group of generals could not help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Their lord had a way. Not only did he win Qin Feiyang's sympathy, but he also avoided the risk of offending the central dynasty. It was killing two birds with one stone. The king of the underworld looked at Qin Feiyang with a face full of gratitude. Thank you, Brother Qin. You are a very righteous person. But don't worry, although we can't do anything, we will not interfere with what you do in the taboo ocean. You can treat the taboo ocean as your backyard and do whatever you want. Then shouldn't I thank Senior? Qin Feiyang chuckled. No need, no need. We're all on the same side. Don't treat me like an outsider. The king of the underworld waved his hand repeatedly. What he said was so righteous and dignified. The white-eyed wolf's mouth twitched. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said speechlessly, You have been acting with them for so long. Are you tired? Not tired. It's quite interesting. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Acting with us? The king of the underworld and the others were stunned. What did he mean? The white-eyed wolf looked at the group of generals and said jokingly, It seems that you really take us for fools. No, in all honesty. The king of the underworld hurriedly shouted. In all honesty? Okay. If you all make a blood oath now, we will believe you. The white-eyed wolf's eyes were full of playfulness. Blood oath. The king of the underworld and the group of generals suddenly panicked. If they were to make a blood oath now, wouldn't the wrath of heaven befall them at any moment? What? We don't dare. So, you have been deceiving us all this time. The white-eyed wolf's eyes suddenly surged with strong killing intent. No, no, we are not deceiving you. The king of the underworld shook his head. My lord, this is the trouble you caused by acting smart. If you were willing to cooperate with them just now, wouldn't there be no trouble? The group of generals also secretly roared. How infuriating. Why did you act smart for no reason? End of chapter. Chapter 40, 399. Facing the scolding of a group of generals, the king of the underworld could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. But now, it was definitely not the time to be calculative, because if he were to be calculative with a group of generals now, when they were angered and changed sides, his situation would be even worse. Although he was the king of the underworld and had a higher status than these generals were not weak either. As the saying goes, a cornered dog will jump over the wall. In a matter of life and death, one could do anything. Why are you so insensible? Do you think you can win our sympathy by acting pitiful? Qin Feiyang shook his head. If he could listen to him obediently, he could live a little longer. But now he could only apologize. Don't, let's talk nicely. I will cooperate. The king of the underworld hurriedly waved his hand. I have already given you the opportunity before, but you didn't cherish it. Now, I only believe that only people like Dong de Yuan who are controlled by the soul-controlling technique will truly cooperate with us. Killing intent flashed in Lunatic's eyes. When the all-evil sword appeared, its sharp edge instantly swept in all directions. The waves rose tens of thousands of feet high, and the void collapsed crazily. Damn it, run! The king of the underworld roared. The group of people immediately activated the instant time and flew into the sky. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. 3,000 clones activated, and the dual will of heavenly Tao erupted. Their speed was far from what the king of the underworld and the others could match, and they instantly surrounded the group. Kill our way out! The king of the underworld roared. Boom! Ultimate profound meaning was activated, and there were actually 9 ultimate profound meanings. 9 ultimate profundities of supreme laws were already considered the strongest existences in this world. Because apart from the life and death edict, the king of the underworld had mastered all the ultimate profound meanings, including the light and darkness edict. Seeing this, a group of generals also activated their ultimate profound meanings. These people had actually all mastered 7 ultimate profundities of the ultimate laws. The will of heavenly Tao erupted. This battle formation was not just a little frightening. The king of the underworld had 9 ultimate profound meanings, and the 30 generals each had 7. In total, there were 219 ultimate profound meanings. It could be said that such strength was enough to make many despair. However, Qin Feiyang, the madman, the white-eyed wolf, was an exception. A bunch of ants. How dare you be so presumptuous? The madman waved his hand, and the all-evil sword erupted with world-destroying might as it furiously slashed out. With a loud explosion, the 219 ultimate intents shattered on the spot. But at the same time, the madman's sword of all evil also collapsed. What happened? Qin Feiyang, white-eyed wolf, and Mu Qing all looked at Madman in surprise. Wasn't Madman's all-evil sword capable of destroying 10,000 ultimate profundities? How was it that the other party was able to shatter the all-evil sword with just 219 ultimate profundities? Madman sent a voice transmission. Back in the village, the power of all evil was almost used up, and it still hasn't recovered, so this is the only way. I see. In other words, the power of the all-evil sword is completely supported by the power of all evil. Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Madman nodded. Right now, he was the source of all evil, and the evil power that he usually absorbed was stored in his body. In short, the more power of all evil he stored, the stronger the power of the all-evil sword would erupt. Then in the future, you should use the all-evil sword less and save it for critical moments. Qin Feiyang secretly said, It doesn't matter. I can control the power of all evil as I wish. I can extract as much as I need, and it won't be wasted. Moreover, the lethality of the all-evil sword itself isn't weak. Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the 3,000 incarnations. The 3,000 incarnations laughed and immediately swarmed forward, beating up the king of the underworld and the others. For a moment, screams could be heard endlessly. Blood also dyed the sky red. Don't go too far. The king of the underworld roared, and with a shake of his body, he turned into a huge sea beast. This was a golden deep sea dragon. Its body was thousands of feet long, like a majestic mountain ridge. This was the original body of the king of the underworld. The group of generals also changed back to their original bodies, which were a group of mountain-like sea beasts. Is it useful to change back to your original body? The white-eyed wolf sneered. Rumble. Sure enough, the 3,000 incarnations activated the kingdom of life and death, directly smashing the bodies of a group of sea beasts, staining the surroundings with blood. Following closely, whether it was the king of the underworld's divine soul or the group of generals, they were all suppressed by the 3,000 incarnations. The group of generals begged for mercy in despair. Qin Feiyang, spare our lives. It was all the king of the underworld's fault before. We have been persuading him to cooperate with you, but he thought himself clever. If you want to kill him, don't kill us. Our strength is not bad. We can serve you. With our help, not to mention Dong Diyuan's companions, even ruling this taboo ocean can be easily done. Please, give us a chance to make up for our mistakes. Did they dare to not beg for mercy? Right now, they were equivalent to fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by Qin Feiyang and the others. Hee. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf, and said, Clean up the sea beasts nearby. Don't let the news of the king of the underworld and the group of generals falling into our hands spread. This will affect our plan. Understood. The madman and the white-eyed wolf nodded. A fierce light flashed in their eyes. After Qin Feiyang brought the king of the underworld and the group of generals' divine souls into the Black Tortoise realm, the two immediately rushed to the sea below. There was also Dong Daiyuan. Dong Daiyuan also grasped the will of the heavenly Tao, so his strength was naturally not to be underestimated. As for Mu Qing, he was recuperating at the side. He was also very tired after continuously opening the all-seeing eye. The reason why they had to clean up the nearby sea beasts was to silence them. There must be many sea beasts in the nearby sea that had seen the king of the underworld and the group of generals fall into their hands with their own eyes. Once this matter spread out, it would naturally be very difficult for Qin Feiyang and the others to use the name of the king of the underworld to gather all the sea beasts that had grasped the ultimate, profound meaning. If they couldn't gather them, then there was no way to successfully plunder their ultimate, profound meaning. So, this matter must be kept a secret for now. With the madman and the other two's slaughter, this sea area instantly turned into a sea of blood. About a moment later, Qin Feiyang appeared with the king of the underworld and the others. Not only had this group of people been controlled by the soul-controlling technique, even their shattered bodies had been reconstructed with the help of the mermaid princess. Moreover, they had returned to their human forms without any injuries on their bodies. Whoosh! Soon, the madman and the other two returned. Their bodies were dripping with blood and their murderous aura was monstrous. Moreover, there were many remnant souls suppressed beside each of them. Have you cleaned them up? Qin Feiyang asked. Is there a need to ask? Moreover, whenever we encounter sea beasts that have grasped the ultimate profound meaning, we will keep their divine souls. The madman bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang looked at the divine souls suppressed beside the three, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. There were at least thousands of divine souls suppressed beside the three. Even if these sea beasts only grasped one ultimate profound meaning of the strongest law, there were still thousands of ultimate profound meanings added up. In just a short while they had obtained thousands of ultimate profound meanings of the strongest law. To them this taboo ocean was a treasure trove. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and suppressed thousands of divine souls in the soul-sealing valley. Immediately after, he pondered for a while and looked at the king of the underworld. Immediately spread the news. Tell Dong Daiyuan and Dong Yi's 10 companions that we have already rushed ahead of them and are preparing to ambush them near the entrance of the Central Dynasty. Tell them to go to the King Island immediately. Tell them that you have a way to help them escape our pursuit. Yes. The king of the underworld replied respectfully. They only needed to find some sea beasts and issue this order. At that time, there would naturally be a large number of sea beasts looking for those 10 people. Also, tell all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean that have grasped the ultimate profound meaning of the strongest law to gather at the King Island. Qin Feiyang said again, as long as these sea beasts arrived, all the ultimate profound meanings would be in their pockets. He was really looking forward to it. How many ultimate profound meanings of the strongest law would they obtain in the end? Yes, the king of the underworld was now as obedient as a little lamb. He immediately took the order and led 30 generals to search for the sea beasts and issue these 2 orders. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Mu Qing and said with a smile, "You go to the Black Tortoise world first. I will call you out if I need you. It's best if you don't need me." Mu Qing pursed her lips. She just wanted to go into seclusion and peace. Why was it so difficult? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and sent Mu Qing to the Black Tortoise world. Immediately after, he took out 4 illusion form pills and looked at the madman, white-eyed wolf, and Dong Daiyuan. He smiled and said, "We also have to change our appearances. Otherwise, if we walk together with the king of the underworld and are seen by the sea beasts, it will affect our plan." Hee. The madman and Dong Daiyuan bared their teeth, took the illusion form pills, and turned into a few middle-aged men. Not long after, The king of the underworld returned with a group of generals. The order had been issued, and now they were waiting for the fish to walk into the trap. Let's go! Let's go to the King Island and wait for them. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Immediately, the group of people flew towards the serene King Island in a grandiose manner. 2 days later, in the sky above a sea beast suddenly rushed out of the water and blocked in front of a black-robed old woman. The black-robed old woman was shocked and quickly stopped. Don't be nervous. The king of the underworld asked me to tell you that Qin Feiyang and the others have already rushed in front of you and are preparing to wait for you near the entrance of the Central Dynasty. Therefore, he wants you to go to the King Island immediately. The sea beast said, What? They're so fast! The black-robed old woman's expression changed. Qin Feiyang has grasped 2 wills of the heavenly Tao. He will definitely be faster than you, the sea beast said. The black-robed old woman's heart sank and asked, Does the king of the underworld really have a way to help us escape? I don't know. The king of the underworld only asked us to pass this news to you. It's up to you to believe it or not. After the sea beast finished speaking, it plunged into the sea and disappeared. Damn, that Qin Feiyang. You'd better not let me return to the Central Dynasty. Otherwise, I will definitely lead an army and turn you into ashes. The black-robed old woman roared and finally decided to go to the King Island, because now she had no other choice but to believe in the king of the underworld. End of this chapter. Chapter 4400. The other 9 also received the message from the sea beasts and chose to head to the serene King Island like the black-robed old woman. There was indeed no other way. Hearing that Qin Feiyang and the others were going to wait for them near the entrance, they did not have the courage to continue, not to mention the strength of the white-eyed wolf and the frenzied one. Just Qin Feiyang's dual wills of the great path, 3,000 incarnations, and the laws of life and death were like a mountain that pressed down on them. At the same time, a large number of sea beasts were also rushing towards the serene King Island. When Qin Feiyang and the others returned to the serene King Island, there were already many sea beasts there. My lord, why did you call us here? Who are the 4 of them? Everyone surrounded the king of the underworld and asked. There were also sea beasts that looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang, the frenzied one, the white-eyed wolf, and Dong Dayuan. The sea beasts that entered the island had to transform into their human forms so that they would not take up space. Of course there's something. The king of the underworld spoke, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, The 4 of them are newly promoted warlords. From now on, their orders are equivalent to my orders. Newly promoted warlords. So, they have already grasped the will of the great path. Everyone was surprised. Yes, the king of the underworld nodded. Greetings, my lords. Hearing this, everyone immediately bowed to Qin Feiyang and the others. Rise. Please take care of us in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. No, it should be my lord. Please take care of us. The sea beasts' faces were full of flattery. Lord King of the Underworld, did you call us here because of the 4 newly promoted warlords? Some sea beasts asked. It's part of the reason. After all, our taboo ocean hasn't had a new warlord for a long time. It's worth celebrating. As for the other reasons, I will announce them when everyone arrives. Now go and find a place to rest. In addition, the 10 people from the Central Dynasty will also come. Don't make things difficult for them. The king of the underworld instructed. Yes, everyone nodded. They left in groups of 2s and 3s. I really didn't expect that 4 battle generals would be born at once. It's a little unexpected. But this is also a good thing. Our taboo ocean is getting stronger and stronger. Now, even if the sovereign of the human race and the divine king of the divine race enter our taboo ocean, they wouldn't dare to act rashly. Wait. I heard that Qin Feiyang, Golden Wing Wolf King, and Madman Mo have entered our taboo ocean. Could it be that the king of the underworld has summoned us here because of these 3 people? It can't be that he wants us to join hands and get rid of these 3 people, right? It's said that this Qin Feiyang controls 3,000 incarnations, the laws of life and death, the eye of heaven, and 2 wills of the heavenly Daos. He's not someone to be trifled with. You're too useless. So what if he's strong? There's so many sea beasts in our taboo ocean that have grasped the ultimate profundity. Why would we be afraid of a single person? That's right. As long as we gather together, we can drown him with a mouthful of saliva each. For a time there were many discussions on the island. In the middle of the island, there was a huge mountain that was thousands of feet high. At the peak of the mountain stood an ancient hall. Qin Feiyang and the others were led into the main hall by the king of the underworld. After entering the hall, the tranquil Sea King stood respectfully behind Qin Feiyang and the others. "Should I close the door?" Madman asked. "No need. In any case, we've already changed our appearances and auras. No one can recognize us. Besides, if we close the door and wait for the 10 from the central dynasty to arrive, they might be suspicious." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. "That makes sense. But now, I'm still worried about a problem. We've gathered so many sea beasts this time, and all of them have mastered ultimate enlightenment of ultimate laws. With our strength, will we be able to take them down smoothly?" Madman frowned. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he pondered for a moment before turning to look at the tranquil Sea King and asking, "How many sea beasts in your taboo ocean have mastered ultimate profundities of ultimate laws?" "I didn't calculate it." The tranquil Sea King shook his head. "Roughly?" Madman asked. "Roughly, there should be 200,000 to 300,000. The tranquil Sea King said with uncertainty. "What? 200,000 to 300,000? Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. 200,000 to 300,000. Even if each sea beast only mastered one ultimate profundity of ultimate laws, wouldn't there be 200,000 to 300,000 ultimate profundities in total? There was no need to elaborate. Even 200,000 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws could be divided into more than 30,000 parts. One must know. And this was a conservative calculation. Some sea beasts even mastered 3, 4, or even 5 ultimate profundities. It was hard to imagine how many ultimate profundities they would obtain in the end. The sea beasts of the taboo ocean were indeed stronger than the beasts and the oceanids. Madman said in a deep voice, "If we calculate it this way, when these sea beasts attack us together, it might really be difficult for us to suppress them." "It shouldn't be difficult. Although these sea beasts are huge in number, they haven't mastered the will of the heavenly Tao. Little Qinzi has 3,000 incarnations, the law of life and death, dual wills of the heavenly Tao and the eye of heaven. You also have the sword of all evil. This brother also has a battle soul, and Dong Diyuan the underworld, Sea King, and 30 generals. Moreover, we also have the battle souls of Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor. With their help, it shouldn't be difficult to suppress these sea beasts." The white-eyed wolf said, "If we have the help of Mu Tianyang and the demon ancestor, then it shouldn't be a problem." Madman nodded and pondered for a while before saying, "But just in case, I still need to go to the Black Tortoise world and absorb the evil energy." "Go to the Black Tortoise world to absorb the evil energy." The white-eyed wolf paused and frowned. "The Black Tortoise world is peaceful. There shouldn't be much evil energy, right?" No. Although the Black Tortoise world is peaceful now, and the beings of the Black Tortoise world are friendly, no matter who it is, they will more or less have evil thoughts, resentment, evil thoughts, killing thoughts, etc. As long as there are these negative emotions, a large amount of evil energy will be born. Of course, the evil energy of the Black Tortoise world definitely can't be compared to the divine kingdom. However, if I take the initiative to absorb it, it will cause a huge commotion. At that time, it will definitely alarm the sea beasts of the taboo ocean." Madman said, "How big of a commotion?" The white-eyed wolf was curious. Madman said proudly, "It's even bigger than when old Qin comprehended the life and death law's ultimate meaning in the Western continent." The white-eyed wolf's eyes widened. Back then, when Qin Feiyong comprehended the life and death law's ultimate meaning in the Western continent, it even shocked the Eastern continent, Southern continent, and Northern continent. Now, Madman was telling him that taking the initiative to absorb the evil energy would cause a bigger commotion than Qin Feiyong? Was it that exaggerated? You still don't believe me? Let's go! Follow me to the Black Tortoise world. I will let you broaden your horizons. After Madman said that, he looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh. With a wave of his hand, the white-eyed wolf and Madman immediately appeared in the sky above the Devil's Land. Just you watch. Madman chuckled and stepped into the clouds. A blood-red aura rushed out from his body, illuminating the surroundings. This aura was the most primitive evil energy. With the appearance of this aura, the entire Devil's Land was enveloped in an evil aura, as if a peerless demon king was being born. "I am the god of all evil. All the evil energy in the world, listen to my call." Madman's domineering voice sounded like a heavenly bell. It resounded throughout the Black Tortoise world. Boom! The next moment, the evil energy around him turned into a huge vortex that occupied the entire sky above the Devil's Land. From afar, it looked like a blood-red bottomless pit, shocking the world. The moment this vortex appeared, the white-eyed wolf standing below also gradually emitted wisps of blood energy. This blood energy also carried an evil aura. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. He reached out to grab this blood energy, but found that he couldn't grab it. It floated straight towards Madman. "Brother Wolf, this is your evil thoughts, killing intent, evil thoughts, resentment, and other negative emotions." Madman's laughter rang out. "Damn, it can actually directly plunder these negative emotions." The white-eyed wolf was shocked. "Of course, I am the god of all evil, the god who rules over evil energy. All evil energy must listen to my call." Madman laughed domineeringly. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. Suddenly, he looked at the castle and the surrounding courtyard. He found that whether it was inside the castle or the surrounding courtyard, wisps of blood energy were floating out. These blood energy were also filled with an evil aura. What's going on? What is going on? Following that, everyone in the Devil's Land ran out of the castle and the courtyard, looking at Madman in the sky in surprise. "Don't be nervous. I am just plundering your evil energy." Madman laughed. "Plundering our evil energy? Isn't this too abnormal?" Everyone was shocked. This was the first time they saw Madman actively absorbing evil energy. At the same time, Zhongzhou, West Region, North Region, South Region, and East Region, whether it was a human or a beast, whether it was an old man or a young man, wisps of blood energy floated out from their bodies. Only those newborn babies didn't. Because newborn babies are like a piece of white paper, they won't produce evil energy. When this scene first appeared, everyone was extremely bewildered. Some even thought that something was extracting the blood energy from their bodies, and they were all panicking. However, as time passed, they found that there was no discomfort on their bodies. On the contrary, they felt warm and comfortable all over. For a moment, everyone was puzzled to the extreme. What was going on? Because the evil energy was extracted, everyone's body and mind entered a state of being pure, like a newborn baby. So they felt very comfortable. End of this chapter. Chapter 4401. An endless amount of evil energy gathered together and surged towards the Devil's Land. Gradually, the entire sky of the Black Tortoise world turned into a sea of blood. It was like a raging wave, filled with an astonishing evil aura. Everyone, don't panic. This is the madman extracting the evil energy from our bodies. It won't hurt anyone. As the guardian of the Black Tortoise world, Fire Lotus sensed the panic of the living beings and quickly comforted them. His voice wasn't loud, but it rang in the ears of every living being. So it's the madman's masterpiece, extracting the evil energy from our bodies. He has such an ability. How did he do it? It's beyond our imagination. Everyone came to a realization, and what followed was shock. Extracting the evil energy from other people's bodies was simply a fantasy to them. They had never heard of it before. As the brother of the sovereign, he was indeed not an ordinary person. Outside, Serene King Island, more and more sea beasts gathered. On the third day, the island was already filled with people. When these sea beasts entered the Serene King Island, they all transformed into their human forms, because this was the only way the Serene King Island could fit them. Whoosh! On the fourth day, 10 real humans arrived at the Serene King Island. These 10 people were the companions of Dong De Yuan and Dong Yi. What's going on? When the 10 of them arrived at the Serene King Island, they were all confused when they saw the sea of people. When the Serene King sensed the aura of the 10 people, he immediately led Qin Feiyang, Dong De Yuan, and the 30 battle swords out to welcome them. Serene King, why are there so many sea beasts gathered at the Serene King Island? The 10 of them looked at the Serene King suspiciously. They also saw Qin Feiyang and Dong De Yuan, but they didn't recognize them. Let's talk inside. The Serene King led the 10 of them into the main hall. Qin Feiyang and the others followed closely behind. An old woman sized up Qin Feiyang and the others. They are this king's war generals. The Serene King smiled and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Why aren't you greeting the guests from the Central Dynasty? Greetings, my lords. Qin Feiyang and the others bowed. No need to be so courteous. We still have to thank you. Otherwise, you guys would have let the sea beasts below keep sending us messages. We might have already fallen into the hands of that little bastard Qin Feiyang. A middle-aged man with a hooked nose said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. With such a foul mouth, it seems like he really needs to be taught a lesson. It's my duty. The king of the tranquil sea waved his hand and smiled at the hook-nosed man. He then pointed to the seat beside him and said with a smile, "Sit down and talk." The 10 of them nodded. Qin Feiyang and the others stood respectfully to the side. Tranquil Ocean King, is Dong Yi here yet? The black-robed old woman sat down and immediately looked at the Serene Sea King. Right now, they were most concerned about Dong Yi, because Yu Hui and Min Hong were both in Dong Yi's hands. Not yet. The king of the underworld shook his head. Not yet. What is he doing? Didn't you ask your men to inform him? An old man asked. They still didn't know that Dong Yi had been captured. Yes, maybe he's still on the way. The king of the tranquil sea said with a smile. The 10 of them looked at each other. Another person sighed and said, He'd better not fall into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain. The old woman said, But then again, if Dong Yi really falls into the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others, it'll be easy for us. We can just self-detonate and get away. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, There's no need to self-detonate. Compared to self-detonate, isn't it more meaningful to kill Qin Feiyang and the others? This was also the problem that he was worried about. Once the 10 of them found out that Dong Yi had been captured, they would definitely self-detonate, because they had left their divine souls in the Central Dynasty. They could directly escape by self-detonating. So now he had to appease the 10 of them. Kill Qin Feiyang and the others? The 10 of them looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. How do we kill them? Tell us. The 10 of them immediately looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. If they could really kill Qin Feiyang and the others, they would have made a great contribution. Let the king of the underworld tell you. Qin Feiyang smiled and silently closed his mouth. The 10 of them looked at the king of the underworld again. It's very simple. Fight them head on. The king of the underworld spoke, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Fight them head on? When the 10 of them heard this, their excitement suddenly disappeared, and they could not help but frown. With the strength of these people, how could they possibly defeat Qin Feiyang and the others in a head-on confrontation? I know that Qin Feiyang and the others are very strong, especially Qin Feiyang. The law of life and death, the 3,000 incarnations, the eye of heaven, and the dual will of heaven. But this is the taboo ocean. I can command all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean. The king of the underworld said domineeringly, Command all the sea beasts? The 10 of them were stunned. The aquiline-nosed man's eyes suddenly lit up, and he asked, Did you summon these sea beasts to deal with Qin Feiyang and the others? That's right. The king of the underworld nodded. Can they do it? The 10 of them expressed their doubts. Don't underestimate them. This time, I have summoned all the sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness of supreme laws. According to my calculations, there are at least 200,000 to 300,000 sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness of supreme laws in the taboo ocean. The king of the underworld said, 200,000 to 300,000. Even the people from the Central Dynasty were shocked when they heard this number. They did not expect the taboo ocean to be so strong. Among these 200,000 to 300,000 sea beasts, some have mastered 2 ultimate profoundness of supreme laws, and some have even mastered 4 or 5 ultimate profoundness of supreme laws. Can you imagine how many ultimate profoundness of supreme laws there are if you add them all together? Moreover, I still have over 30 generals that have grasped the will of the heavenly Tao under my command. Adding on the 10 of you, even if Qin Feiyang uses all his trump cards, it would still be difficult for him to fight against us. The king of the underworld smiled confidently. That's reasonable. The 10 of them nodded. Taking a step back, even if we can't defeat them, we can still restrain them. When the time comes, you can self-detonate and escape, then immediately assemble a large force and rush to the taboo ocean. Won't they still die then? The king of the underworld chuckled, looking as if he was devising a strategy. Brilliant. We admire you. The 10 of them cupped their hands and smiled. You flatter us, but for now, I will have to trouble you to rest on the island for a few days. When all the sea beasts that have mastered ultimate profoundness arrive, we can get ready to move. The king of the underworld said, It's fine. What kind of trouble was this? What they had experienced in the past few days was called suffering. The people of the second direct family of the Central Dynasty were forced to flee by 3 juniors. They couldn't help but feel aggrieved and angry just thinking about it. The king of the underworld turned to Qin Feiyang and said, Take the 10 of them to rest. Make sure they are well settled. Yes. Qin Feiyang replied respectfully, then looked at the 10 of them and said with a smile, Everyone, please. The 10 of them got up and walked outside. At the foot of the mountain where the main hall was, there was a residence with a good environment. There were many exquisite pavilions beside the mountains and rivers. This was where the king of the underworld used to entertain guests. Although the taboo ocean didn't have much contact with the 4 great continents and the Central Dynasty, they all lived on the same continent after all. So sometimes the leaders of the 4 great continents would come to the taboo ocean for a stroll. As for the Central Dynasty, if someone went to the 4 great continents and passed by the taboo ocean and happened to meet the king of the underworld, they would also come to visit. In short, a place to entertain guests was definitely indispensable for a force. Qin Feiyong sat in front of a courtyard and said with a smile, "Everyone, you can rest here for the time being. I will tell them that no one will disturb you. That's for the best. We hate being disturbed the most." The old woman nodded. She thought that the sea beasts of the taboo ocean were quite sensible. Qin Feiyong smiled flatteringly. He didn't leave and seemed to have something to say. "What's wrong?" The 10 of them looked at him in confusion. I have a few questions, but I don't know if I should ask." Qin Feiyong hesitated. "What questions?" The 10 of them were puzzled. "Looking at the way you are dressed, you seem to be members of the Death God Army. But I heard that the Death God Army had 5,000 people some time ago. Why are there only a few of you left now?" Qin Feiyong was curious. "You know about the Death God Army?" The 10 of them were surprised. Qin Feiyong smiled flatteringly. "With such a big commotion, it's hard not to know." "That's true." The old woman nodded, then shook her head and said, "However, you have to know your own identity. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, understand?" Yes. I was talking too much. I hope everyone can forgive me." Qin Feiyong nodded quickly. He had a terrified look on his face. "It's good that you understand. Go! Don't disturb us if there's nothing important." The old woman waved her hand. "Yes." Qin Feiyong responded and turned to leave. Originally, he wanted to take the opportunity to inquire about the situation of the Central Dynasty, but he didn't expect this group of people to be so arrogant. Arrogant, huh? Fine. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. End of this chapter. Chapter 4402. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. Qin Feiyong stood on the mountain peak and scanned the surrounding sea area. Since the day before yesterday, the number of sea beasts that came to Serene King Island had decreased. Yesterday, only a few dozen sea beasts came. Obviously, almost all the sea beasts that grasped the ultimate profound had arrived. After waiting for an entire morning, only 2 sea beasts came. This meant that those that should come had all arrived. It was time to reel in the net. "Senior brother, are you ready?" Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. "I've long been ready." Madman's voice rang in his mind. 1 day outside was equivalent to 5,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. It had been almost 20 days since they arrived at Serene King Island. It had been almost 100,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. No matter how much evil force there was, it had been absorbed clean. "All right, why didn't you say anything?" Qin Feiyong was speechless. Isn't this fusing the ultimate profound? Madman bared his teeth. "All right, hurry up and get ready. Call the white-eyed wolf and come out together. Also, get the demon ancestor Mu Tianyang Longchen and Longqin to get ready too." Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. "How many came?" Madman was bewildered. Qin Feiyong said, "According to my observation, there are about 220,000 sea beasts gathered on Serene King Island." 220,000? Madman was stunned. It was indeed similar to what the Serene King said. He then asked excitedly, "How's the quality?" "Quality?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "It's the number of ultimate profound." Madman explained. These days, I have been paying attention to these sea beasts. I guess that more than half of them have grasped one ultimate profound. There should be about 20,000 sea beasts grasping 2 ultimate profound. There should be more than 3,000 sea beasts grasping 3 ultimate profound. There should be about 500 to 600 sea beasts grasping for ultimate profound. As for the sea beasts that have mastered 5 ultimate profound meanings, I think there are only 70 or 80 of them. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. This is also quite scary. Madman was shocked to the extreme. It's really scary. As long as we obtain the ultimate secrets of these sea beasts, we might be able to create a team that can contend against the Death God Army. Qin Feiyong thought. Okay, wait for me. I'll inform Long Chen and the others right away. After the madman finished speaking, he immediately came out of seclusion. This matter concerned their future. They could only succeed and not fail. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. Then he also rose into the air and flew away from the island. What is this Lord General going to do? On the island below, many sea beasts noticed Qin Feiyang, and their faces were filled with confusion. These days, news of Qin Feiyang's newly promoted battle general had spread long ago. Therefore, when they looked at Qin Feiyang, their eyes were filled with reverence. A moment later, Qin Feiyang left Ghost King Island and entered a desolate island. Seeing that there was no one around, Qin Feiyang's mind moved and 3,000 incarnations appeared. He asked, "You know what to do, right?" Yes. The 3,000 incarnations chuckled and activated their concealment technique before disappearing without a trace. Qin Feiyang also took out a facial restoration pill and restored his true appearance. Now, there was no need to hide anymore. Swish! Subsequently, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the madman, White-Eyed Wolf, and Long Qin appeared beside him. No need to hide anymore? Seeing that Qin Feiyang had restored his true appearance, the madman asked in surprise. No need. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Huh, then let's do it. The madman and White-Eyed Wolf looked at each other and laughed. A group of bandits. Long Qin secretly despised them. To encounter these guys, the sea beasts of the taboo ocean were really unlucky. Let's go. Qin Feiyang took a step forward and once again rushed towards the Serene King Island without concealing his aura. The White-Eyed Wolf's group of 3 followed, closely behind. Rumble! As they approached the Serene King Island, the terrifying aura of the 4 surged over and enveloped the entire island. This aura, all the sea beasts on the island immediately raised their heads and looked over. The Serene King, Dong Diyuan, and a group of generals also walked out from the main hall. The old woman and the others were no exception. With a whoosh, they rushed out from the pavilion and landed beside the Serene King. Looking at the void outside the island, their expressions were extremely solemn. Swish! Billowing waves crazily rushed towards the Serene King Island, covering the sky and the sun. For figures stepped on the waves and came over. Wherever they went, the void collapsed and the sky trembled. At first glance, it was like the birth of a wild beast. Quickly look. There seems to be 4 figures. Someone shouted in surprise. Everyone looked over, and there were indeed 4 figures. To be able to cause a tsunami and collapse the void, the strength of these 4 must not be weak. It's them, Qin Feiyang. Very soon, these 4 figures clearly entered their line of sight. Their expressions changed drastically, and they panicked, especially the old woman and the others. Their faces were pale, and their bodies could not help but tremble. These few people had finally found their way to the Serene King Island. Boom! Qin Feiyang's group of 4 stepped into the Serene King Island. The powerful aura caused even this boundless island to shake violently. Mountains and rivers collapsed crazily. It was like a scene of doomsday. All of you actually came to the Serene King Island to hide. You really know how to hide. The White-Eyed Wolf scanned the surroundings and finally locked his gaze on the old woman and the others beside the Serene King. His eyes were full of ridicule. The 10 of them panicked. The hook-nosed man mustered up his courage and shouted, "Everyone, don't be afraid. There are so many of us. A mouthful of saliva from each of us can drown them." Don't say that. This sentence was really effective. All the sea beasts gathered together, and a powerful aura rolled out, constantly colliding with the aura of Qin Feiyang's group. 220,000 sea beasts, and all of them had mastered the ultimate esoteric law. This aura was also very scary. Serene King, isn't this what we have been waiting for? Hurry up and give the order. I believe that as long as we work together, we will definitely be able to kill them. As long as we can kill them, when I return to the Central Dynasty, I will definitely ask the Emperor for a reward for you." The old woman turned her head to look at the serene king and said, she was actually thinking of a reward. She was a little naive. However, the serene king was indifferent. "What's going on? Serene king, what are you doing? Hurry up and give the order," the 10 of them urged. But the serene king still did not move. The madman looked at the 10 of them and said playfully, "Your words are useless. You need us to speak." Speaking of this, the madman's eyes flashed with killing intent, and he shouted, "Cripple them!" Boom! The serene king, Dong Dayuan, and a group of warlords suddenly launched a surprise attack. The old woman and the others did not expect this scene and were caught off guard. Their bodies were shattered on the spot. Moreover, the serene king made a move and quickly suppressed the divine souls of the 10. "What are you doing?" The divine souls of the 10 roared. They never thought that these people would attack them from behind. The 220,000 sea beasts also looked at the serene king and the others in surprise. "Ha, how is it? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Also, don't you feel that something is missing now? What is missing?" Everyone looked around. Nothing was missing, right? But suddenly, an old man's eyes trembled and shouted, "It seems that there are 3 warlords missing." Yes. Of the 4 newly promoted warlords, only 1 is here now. Where are the other 3? Could it be that they have been killed? That can't be right. These days, there has been no battle on the Serene King Island. Everyone was bewildered. Open your eyes wide and watch carefully. The hope that you have placed on is actually making you more desperate. Serene King, bring their divine souls here, the white-eyed wolf said. At that moment, the Serene King, Dong Dayuan, and a group of warlords flew in front of Qin Feiyang one after another. What's going on? The 220,000 sea beasts were stunned. Why did the Serene King and a group of warlords obediently fly over when the golden-winged Wolf King gave an order? The divine souls of the old woman and the others who were suppressed were also full of surprise. Still don't understand. Qin Feiyang looked at the old woman and the others and said with a smile, "Do you still remember what you said to me when you first came to the Serene King Island? You told me to recognize my identity and not ask what I shouldn't ask." When the 10 heard this, they pondered for a moment and their eyes suddenly trembled. They looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Chapter 4403. Looking at their expressions, the smile on Qin Feiyang's face became even wider. Their bodies were shattered and their divine souls were sealed. Now, even if they wanted to self-destruct, they wouldn't have the chance to do so. Impossible. All of this must be an illusion. The hook-nosed man shook his head. "Don't doubt it, be brave. The person you were talking about was me," Qin Feiyang said. "No," the hook-nosed man roared, "because if the person who brought them to the attic was really Qin Feiyang, wouldn't it mean that everything was a trap set by Qin Feiyang?" He couldn't believe it. "You dare to say this to old Qin? I really don't know where you borrowed your courage from." The frenzied one and the white-eyed wolf also laughed. Qin Feiyang took out a facial restoration pill and handed it to Dong Dayuan with a smile. "Let them see your true appearance." Dong Dayuan nodded and took the facial restoration pill. His appearance immediately began to change. The 10 of them stared at Dong Dayuan. The moment Dong Dayuan regained his true appearance, the 10 of them felt as if they were struck by lightning. They didn't recognize the others, but Dong Dayuan was their companion, their clansman. Even if he turned into ashes, they would still recognize him. "There's one more thing. If I say it, it might make you collapse." Qin Feiyang smiled. "What is it?" The 10 of them were nervous. "Dong Yi," Qin Feiyang chuckled. "Dong Yi." The 10 of them were shocked and suddenly felt uneasy. "You should be looking forward to meeting Dong Yi, because Yu Hui and Min Hong are in his hands." And your mission this time is to bring them back to the central dynasty. Before Qin Feiyang finished, the old woman shouted, "What are you trying to say?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a smile so anxious, "Well, I'll tell you. In fact, what I want to say is that Dong Yi has already fallen into our hands." What? Hearing these words, the 10 people's divine souls were about to collapse. The king of the underworld also knows about this, but why didn't he tell you? It's all for the sake of luring you all to Serene King Island, because once you find out about this, you will definitely choose to self-destruct without hesitation. Furthermore, I deliberately said that there would be an opportunity to kill us in order to appease you all. Qin Feiyang smiled. King of the underworld, are you seeking death? How dare you betray the divine kingdom and collude with Qin Feiyang? The 10 of them immediately looked at the king of the underworld and the 30 generals and roared. However, the king of the underworld and the others remained indifferent. It seems that you still don't understand. The king of the underworld and a group of generals are also under our control. The so-called 4 great generals are actually me and my senior brother, the white-eyed wolf, Dong Dayuan. Qin Feiyang smiled. Their bodies and minds trembled. So this is a trap. Then why did you call us here? The 220,000 sea beasts felt their scalps go numb and asked. Of course, this is also a trap. Qin Feiyang smiled. Also a trap? Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? The group of sea beasts was puzzled. Of course. I need your ultimate law and ultimate profound. Qin Feiyang smiled. The 220,000 sea beasts were shocked when they heard this. Not only did he want to fight the 10 of them from the central dynasty, but he also wanted to snatch their ultimate profound. Run! Someone roared, and the 220,000 sea beasts immediately turned into frightened birds and fled in all directions. Even the king of the underworld and a group of generals were already under Qin Feiyang's control. What else could they do? I've carefully set up this trap. Now that there's only one step left, how can I let you all escape? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Boom! Along with the terrifying auras burst out from all directions of Serene King Island. Immediately after, one figure after another walked out of the void. They were the 3,000 clones that had disappeared after activating the concealment technique. 3,000 clones. Seeing the appearance of the 3,000 clones, whether it was the old woman or the 220,000 sea beasts, they were all terrified. Now that the entire Serene King Island had become an inescapable net, it was impossible to escape. They had to defeat Qin Feiyang and the 3,000 clones. Everyone, don't just sit there and wait for death. Let's fight our way out. The hook-nosed man who was suppressed looked at the 220,000 sea beasts and roared. Yes, kill our way out. We've painstakingly comprehended the ultimate law. We can't let them get away so easily. The 220,000 sea beasts roared. The power of law surged. In the void above, hundreds of thousands of ultimate law and ultimate profound appeared in an instant. Although there was no heavenly will, the divine aura that was emitted was extremely terrifying. A bunch of ants. How dare you act so rashly? The 3,000 clones laughed. Don't kill them, Qin Feiyang shouted. Understood. The 3,000 clones nodded. The time array activated. Under the feet of each clone, a time array appeared and flickered with divine light. Following that, the purple gold dragon soul appeared. The eye of heaven opened and began to copy the ultimate profound of these sea beasts. This was the benefit of mastering the time law. In the past, without the time law, Qin Feiyang could only go to the black tortoise world and borrow the time array when he opened the eye of heaven to copy the ultimate profound. But now, he could set up a time array anytime and anywhere, so there was no need to enter the black tortoise world. With the help of the time array, the Eye of Heaven instantly copied the 220,000 sea beasts' ultimate profound. The 220,000 sea beasts were dumbfounded. This is the Eye of Heaven? This is too abnormal. It actually copied all of their ultimate profound. Madman grinned. It seems that we don't need to do anything. No, we can't be careless. We have to prevent them from self-destructing. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Kill, accompanied by a heaven-shaking roar. The ultimate profound of both sides collided. The void, land, and sea here turned into ashes on the spot. This won't do. They're too strong. Even if I die, I won't let you deprive me of my ultimate profound. Accompanied by a roar of despair, a destructive aura erupted. Obviously, some sea beasts chose to self-destruct. As long as one sea beast chose to self-destruct, the other sea beasts would follow suit. In an instant, countless destructive auras erupted. Haha, you guys never expected that these sea beasts would be so unafraid of death. You guys are very strong and can stop a portion of the sea beasts from self-destructing. But can you stop all the sea beasts from self-destructing? Your wishful thinking is destined to go down the drain. The old woman's 10 divine souls watched this scene and couldn't help but laugh out loud in schadenfreude. What a bunch of frogs at the bottom of a well! Qin Feiyang looked at the 10 of them in disdain. With a thought, 2 figures appeared in front of him. It was the demon ancestor and Mu Tianyang. Chapter 4404. Can you control the Lord and the others? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. None of them have mastered the will of the heavenly path. It's a small problem. The demon ancestor smiled confidently. The Eye of Despair opened at the same time. The 2 strongest battle souls instantly erupted with terrifying divine power. Some of the sea beasts fell into the abyss of despair, unable to extricate themselves. Mu Tianyang's Eye of Evil also opened. The Eye of Evil could control the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living things. It could also magnify the 7 emotions and 6 desires of all living things. For example, greed, ambition, and desire. From there, it would achieve the goal of controlling the other party. Let's kill each other. Mu Tianyang roared. As his voice fell, the eyes of the other group of sea beasts turned blood red, and they began to kill each other. At this moment, the desire, ambition, and greed in their hearts completely erupted. It was endless. Screams, roars, and angry roars. It was incessant. Now, their bodies and minds had been completely engulfed by desire, ambition, and greed. They had turned into crazy killing machines. This is the Eye of Evil and the Eye of Despair. The old woman and the others were dumbfounded. They could even easily control creatures that had mastered the ultimacy. It was too terrifying. It was simply a nightmarish existence. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Dong Daiyuan. He pointed at the divine souls of the old woman and the others and ordered, "You watch over them." "Yes," Dong Daiyuan replied respectfully. "Senior brother, White-Eyed Wolf, King of the Underworld, let's do it quickly." Qin Feiyang shouted coldly again and leaped into the battlefield. Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, King of the Underworld, the 30 generals, and the 3,000 avatars around them also pounced on the battlefield like hungry wolves. Their first targets were the sea beasts that were controlled by the Eye of Despair. Because these sea beasts had fallen into the abyss of despair, they did not even know how to resist. Therefore, killing them was as easy as blowing off dust. Accompanied by endless wails, the sea beasts fell one after another. Their physical bodies were all shattered. Only their divine souls were left. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and Long Qin appeared. He said, "Qin you are responsible for suppressing their divine souls." "Okay." Long Qin nodded. The power of laws surged out and formed a huge barrier. The souls of the sea beasts were suppressed within the barrier. So many. How many ultimate mysteries did he obtain? Looking at the sea beasts in front of him, Longqing's face was full of shock. This was a massacre. Blood poured down like a waterfall, turning the sea into a sea of blood. The smell of blood was pungent. 100 breaths passed. The massacre had finally come to an end. The fiend ancestor and Mu Tianyang's eye of despair and evil eye also disappeared. Their bodies swayed slightly, as if they were exhausted. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously as he stepped forward to support them. "It's too extreme. We can't take it anymore." Mu Tianyang shook his head. "That's the limit?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and frowned. Wouldn't it be even more difficult to deal with an expert who has grasped the will of the heavenly Tao? "Definitely. The stronger they are, the harder it is for us to control them. Moreover, the will of the heavenly Tao is the strongest will in the world. Once it merges with a living being, the other parties will also be strengthened. Our eye of despair and evil eye are targeted at the other party's will. If the other party's will is strong enough, it will naturally be more difficult to control them." Mu Tianyang said, "I don't think so. The will of the heavenly Tao is very strong, but I still believe that man can conquer the heavens. As long as we don't give up and surrender, our will be more terrifying than the will of the heavenly Tao." Qin Feiyang clenched his fists, his words sonorous and powerful. "Ha ha!" Hearing this, the two looked at each other and laughed. More terrifying than the will of the heavenly Tao. What a domineering statement. At the same time, the white-eyed wolf and the others assisted Longqing and suppressed the souls of all the sea beasts. "How is it? Are there any casualties?" Qin Feiyang asked. "There are some casualties among the sea beasts controlled by the evil eye, but not many. I estimate that there are only a few hundred sea beasts that have been destroyed." Longqing said, "A few hundred sea beasts, it's quite a pity." Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. However, this was unavoidable, because the evil eye was different from the eye of despair. The eye of despair made the other party fall into the abyss of despair. As long as the other party was controlled by the eye of despair, it was equivalent to a puppet standing there for you to kill. Naturally, there would not be any casualties. But the evil eye controlled the other party's 7 emotions and 6 desires, magnifying their ambitions, desires, and greed. Whether it was humans or other living beings, as long as they were engulfed by their ambitions, desires, and greed, they would enter a state of madness and attack mercilessly. Naturally, casualties were unavoidable. Gradually, this place calmed down. The seawater rolled in and swallowed the original Ghost King Island. "Does this mean we're done?" the white-eyed wolf asked. "Of course. Next, it's Long Chen's matter." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and turned to look at Longqing. "Take the souls of these sea beasts to the Black Tortoise world and hand them to your brother. At the same time, let Qiao Shui, Li Zhongxing, and the old poison come out of seclusion to help. It's quite convenient for you to order me around now." Longqing looked at him unhappily. "Haha, don't be so polite since we're family, right?" Qin Feiyang laughed. "Who's family with you?" Longqing glared at him angrily. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He looked at Dong de Yuan, king of the underworld, and the others and said, "Enter the Black Tortoise world and let them strip all their ultimate mysteries." Dong de Yuan, king of the underworld, and the others heard this sentence, but they did not have any reaction. It was as if it had nothing to do with them. What about these 10 people? Madman glanced at the souls of the old woman and the others. The eyes of the 10 trembled as they hurriedly begged, "Don't strip us of our ultimate mysteries. We are from the Central Dynasty. You still want to threaten us?" Madman sneered. "No, no. What we want to say is that we are very valuable. As long as you let us go, we can be your informants." The 10 of them hurriedly explained. Informants? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, their faces full of ridicule. With the inner demons and big cousin as informants, Did they still need other informants? Not at all. It was purely unnecessary. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and said with a smile, "Capturing them so hard, isn't it because you want their ultimate mysteries? Strip them all, and Dong Yi, it's useless to keep them." "No, I beg you, let us go. We swear that we will be loyal to you and be your cattle and horses," the 10 of them begged again and again. Stripping them of their ultimate mysteries was more painful than killing them. They might as well die. But now, they even lost the right to die. Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. With a wave of his hand, except for Madman and the white-eyed wolf, everyone was sent to the black tortoise world. I really didn't expect it to be so smooth. However, I really have to thank Mu Tianyang and Ancestor Demon. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang and Madman nodded. It was easy to kill these sea beasts, but without the evil eye and eyes of despair, capturing these sea beasts alive was harder than ascending the heavens. Next, are we going to return to the 4 great continents? The white-eyed wolf asked. What else do you want to do? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. The white-eyed wolf looked at the end of the sea and chuckled. I want to take a look at the entrance of the Central Dynasty and see what it is like. What's there to see? If I can enter the Central Dynasty, I will be very happy. Madman bared his teeth, because as long as they entered the Central Dynasty, they could avoid fighting in the 4 great continents. This way, they wouldn't implicate the human race, god race, and purple gold divine dragon race. Most importantly, as long as they entered the Central Dynasty, they could find an opportunity to destroy the 10 teams of the Death God Army one by one. In fact, the current situation was the same as when the Divine Kingdom invaded the Sky Cloud boundary. If they stayed in the 4 great continents, they would be in a passive state, because they could only wait for the Central Dynasty to take the initiative to come to the 4 great continents. But if they could enter the Central Dynasty, they could take the initiative to attack. There is only one way to enter the Central Dynasty, and that is to find that mysterious youth, because only the origin energy in his hands can destroy the origin energy between the Central Dynasty and the 4 great continents. But we don't even know where this guy is right now. Qin Feiyang frowned. Then should we ask the monarch, Divine King, and Ji Zun to help us find him? Madman suggested. That's the only way. Qin Feiyang nodded and glanced at the surrounding sea. He smiled and said, let's go back first. There are still 8 people from the 2nd direct family waiting for us to deal with. On the way back, the 3 didn't even use the split time. It was very leisurely. Because of this, it took them almost half a month to walk out of the taboo ocean. Seeing the long-awaited sunlight, the 3 couldn't help but smile. From the time they entered the taboo ocean until now, it had been about 2 months. 2 months, 60 days. 300,000 years had passed in the black tortoise world. 300,000 years. The sacred ground must have many disciples stepping into the Dominator realm. The white-eyed wolf couldn't wait and said, let's go to the black tortoise world and see how many ultimate mysteries we have obtained this time. In the half a month on the way back, 100,000 years had passed in the black tortoise world. He believed that Long Qin must have already robbed all the sea beasts of their ultimate mysteries when they appeared in the Devil's Land. As expected, Long Qin had already gone into seclusion to fuse with his ultimate mysteries. Long Qin, Qiao Shui, Li Zhongxing, and the Old Poison were also in seclusion. Qin Feiyang brewed a pot of tea and sat in the tea garden. With a thought, Qiao Shui appeared in front of him. Sit down and talk. Qin Feiyang smiled and poured a cup of tea for Qiao Shui. Qiao Shui picked up the teacup and tasted it. Her posture was elegant and noble. Are you going to keep us in suspense again? The white-eyed wolf and Madman were both holding a jug of wine. Seeing that Qiao Shui didn't speak for a long time, they immediately asked with displeasure. Qiao Shui looked at the 2 in surprise and said, why do you have to say it? Can't you let me keep you in suspense first?" The two rolled their eyes. End of chapter. Chapter 4405. Qiao Shui put down her teacup and said with a smile, "We've collected more than 254,000 ultimate laws this time." More than 254,000. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf stood up. Qin Feiyang's arm that was holding the teacup couldn't help but tremble slightly. More than 254,000 daos. That would be more than 42,000 daos. In other words, the ultimate laws they had collected this time could create more than 42,000 overlords with the will of heaven. Wasn't that equivalent to a few teams of the Death God army? Little Qin Zi, I think we'll have the strength to fight against the Death God army of the Central Dynasty if we can cultivate these overlords with the will of heaven, the white-eyed wolf said excitedly. Although there were more than 42,000 now, there were still 6,000 Dark Guards, Xia Yuan and the others, and the three races. Most importantly, Qin Feiyang, the king, Heavenly Lord Ji, the demon ancestor, and Boss Ji all had 3,000 incarnations. They were all overlords who could fight against 3,000 people, especially Qin Feiyang and the demon ancestor. One had the eye of heaven and the other had the eye of despair. And the mad scientist. The destructive power of the all-evil sword could also destroy an army of death gods. That's right, but we still need time. Besides, we don't know the exact situation of the death god army yet. We need to wait for the inner demons and cousin to find out more. Qin Feiyang said, "I know, but I want to know that even if there's still a gap between us and the Central Dynasty, it's not that big." The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Qin Feiyang nodded. He didn't know when the inner demons and cousin would come back. He didn't dare to act rashly before figuring out the true strength of the Death God army. After all, it was too important. If he wasn't careful, the God race, the human race, and the purple-gold divine dragon race would be doomed. One had to know. The God race, the human race, and the purple-gold divine dragon race had many people. If his mistake really caused the three major races to fall into a desperate situation, he wouldn't be able to get over it. Wait, the white-eyed wolf calmed down and looked at Qiao Shui. There are a total of 220,000 sea beasts, and that's not including the ocean, Nether King, and the others. How come we only obtained a little over 250,000 ultimate mysteries? That's because the majority of sea beasts only possess a single ultimate profound. For example, the sea beasts that have grasped 5 ultimate profound meanings. Although they have grasped many ultimate profound meanings, there are very few of them. According to my calculations, there are only 65 sea beasts that have grasped 5 ultimate profound meanings. It does look impressive, but if you count it carefully, you'll realize that the 65 sea beasts only have 300 ultimate mysteries of ultimate laws. Qiao Shui shook her head. You're right. The white-eyed wolf nodded. After all, there were too few sea beasts that had mastered 2, 3, 4, or even 5 ultimate profound meanings. Qiao Shui smiled and said, but at the same time we also obtained several 100,000 ultimate profundities of ordinary laws. There are so many ultimate profundities in ordinary laws. The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Of course, ordinary laws are easier to comprehend than ultimate laws. Basically, every sea beast has grasped 1 or 2 ultimate laws. Can you imagine how many ultimate profundities of 220,000 sea beasts are added together? Qiao Shui said. The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment. Then he looked at Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf and chuckled. This is a bonus. In the past, he only valued the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws and neglected the value of ordinary ultimate laws. Even if he took them away, he would only take away the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. But in fact, ordinary ultimate profundities of ultimate laws were also very valuable. Although they couldn't use them, they could send them to the divine treasury and let the beings of the Black Tortoise world fight for them with luck and strength. This way, other than the disciples of the sacred grounds, other beings could also gradually rise. Qin Feiyang looked at Xiao Shui and asked, "Do you still have the ultimate law of light and darkness that the Netherworld King gave you?" "Of course. Without your permission, I won't give it to anyone who comes to me." Xiao Shui nodded. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. Then he asked curiously, "So, someone has already come to you for the ultimate law of light and darkness?" They had a total of 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness. Among them, Qin Feiyang, the Frenzy, the White-Eyed Wolf, Long Qin, Long Chun, the Inner Demons, and Lu Jiejing each had one ultimate law. The last one was also taken by the Long Qin siblings. It should have been given to Long Zun. Now, the Netherworld King had the 9th ultimate law. They had to admit that although the ultimate law of light and darkness couldn't be compared to the ultimate law of life and death, it was really rare. Over the years, they had obtained more than 300,000 ultimate mysteries from other supreme laws. However, they only had 9 ultimate mysteries from the law of light and darkness. Yes, like Mu Qing, Mu Tianyang, Li Zhongxing, and the Old Poison. When they saw the ultimate law of light and darkness, they almost drooled. Xiao Shui shook her head and smiled bitterly. They really didn't know how to be content at all. If it weren't for the hard work of Qin Feiyang, the Frenzy, the White-Eyed Wolf, Long Chun, and Long Qin over the years, they would be grateful if they could comprehend 2 or 3 ultimate laws of light and darkness, let alone the will of heavens. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile, "It's understandable. After all, at this level, one more ultimate law of light and darkness would make a world of difference in strength. For example, a person who had 7 ultimate laws of light and darkness could completely crush a person who had 6 ultimate laws of light and darkness. Then, who do you plan to give this ultimate law of light and darkness to?" Xiao Shui asked, "Do you still need to ask?" "Of course, I'll give it to my wife." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Now, the adults had basically obtained enough ultimate laws of light and darkness to master the will of heavens. For example, Mu Tianyang and the others had even given them 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness. 8 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. This was already all the ultimate laws apart from the life and death laws and the light and darkness laws. So now he had to take care of the people he cared about the most. And the mermaid princess was undoubtedly the person Qin Feiyang cared about the most. In a sense, there was no other. "Okay, I'll give it all to you now. You can make the arrangements yourself." Xiao Shui took out 2 interspatial rings. One contained ultimate laws of light and darkness, while the other contained ultimate laws of light and darkness. Qin Feiyang took the 2 interspatial rings and asked, "Where are the Underworld King, Dong Deyuan, Dong Yi, and the others now?" "They're all suppressed in Soul Sealing Valley. Long Qin has already removed his control over them. They're waiting for you to decide whether they live or die." Xiao Shui said, "What about Min Hong and Yu Hui?" Qin Feiyang asked again. Xiao Shui smiled and said, "They're still imprisoned in the ancient castle's cultivation room." "Okay, thank you for your hard work. Go into seclusion first." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. "Okay." Xiao Shui nodded. After drinking the tea in her cup, she got up and left. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while. With a wave of his hand, Fire Lotus appeared beside him. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, Fire Lotus smiled and said, "You're returning with a full harvest from this taboo ocean. Do you admire us?" "Unfortunately, we're all taken men." White-Eyed Wolf bared his teeth. "Shameless." Fire Lotus looked at him with disdain. Qin Feiyang handed the 2 interspatial rings to Fire Lotus and said with a smile, "You can make the arrangements for the ultimate laws of light and darkness. However, these ultimate laws of light and darkness must be used on the disciples of the Saint Hall. Understood. Fire Lotus nodded. Also, in the past, the 6,000 Dark Guards only gave them 6 inheritances. But now we have extra inheritances, so we'll give them the remaining 2 inheritances. Qin Feiyang smiled. Apart from the law of light and darkness, 8 ultimate laws of light and darkness was already the limit. What about the others apart from the 6,000 Shadow Guards? Fire Lotus asked. Of course, they have to be given. Everyone in our Devil's Land will eventually have to master 8 ultimate profundities of the supreme laws. That includes you, because the Devil's Land is the strongest holy land in our Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. Fire Lotus nodded. Pai Lupi, Theta Wang, Pei Hongyu, Pei Daisen. Don't forget that they have contributed a lot to our Black Tortoise world over the years. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I won't forget them, because my feelings are the most obvious. If it weren't for their help, I might have been so busy that I wouldn't have had time to cultivate. Fire Lotus said. She didn't just admire the 4 of them. She was also grateful. They had shared a lot of her burden. No, now, it could be said that the 4 of them were in charge of everything in the Black Tortoise world. As for her, she only needed to give orders, which was tantamount to being a hands-off manager. Qin Feiyang said again, also, there is an ultimate law of light and darkness in here. Help me pass it to your sister-in-law. Pass it to her? Qin Dage, I can guarantee you that she won't accept it, because you know her personality. She has no desires and would rather pass this law of light and darkness to people like the demon ancestor who need it more. Fire Lotus said. That's your business. Qin Feiyang smiled. It was because he understood the mermaid princess personality too well that he asked Fire Lotus to pass it to her. Okay, so you want me to be the lobbyist. Fire Lotus smiled helplessly and said, Then you guys take your time talking. I'll go find your madam now. I promise to complete the task. With that, she turned and left quickly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Then, with a wave of his hand, Pai Lupi and Theta Wang appeared in front of him. When the 2 saw Qin Feiyang's group, their faces were filled with excitement. Obviously, they already knew about the 220,000 sea beasts' ultimate laws. It's been 200,000 to 300,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. There should be many disciples in the Sacred Land who have reached the Dominator realm now. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yes, there are already tens of thousands of disciples in the Sacred Land who have reached the Dominator realm. One is born almost every few days. However, we don't have many law miniatures left. Pai Lupi said, The law miniatures don't matter. The reason why we're using law miniatures to nurture them now is because time is tight. When we've nurtured enough Sacred Hall disciples to fight against the Death God army, it's best to let them comprehend the law miniatures themselves. Qin Feiyang said, You already know about the Sacred Hall? The 2 looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. What can be hidden from me about the Black Tortoise world? Qin Feiyang chuckled. The 2 smiled embarrassedly. Originally, they wanted to give Qin Feiyang a surprise, but they didn't expect him to already know. Regarding the Sacred Hall, I want to reward you. You have a lot of ideas, but you can't be arrogant. Keep up the good work. The future depends on you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes, the 2 bowed and answered. Then they asked expectantly what reward. End of chapter. Chapter 4406. What kind of reward do you want? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. This, the 2 lowered their heads and pondered. Right now, they had both strength and status. They felt that they had reached the peak of their lives. They really couldn't think of anything. What else did they lack? Madman looked at the 2 of them and joked. How about this? We'll give each of you a wife. Huh. The two of them looked at Madman with a stunned expression. Madman chuckled and said, "You can be considered a promising young man now. It's time to find a woman and start a family." Promising young man? The two smiled bitterly. In the eyes of the black tortoise world, they were already old antiques. How could they be worthy of the word young man? But then again, right now, they really should think about this problem. At this age, they didn't even have a child. If they were to unfortunately die in battle one day, wouldn't they not have a successor? Thinking of this, the two of them looked at Madman and smiled. "Boss Madman, do you have a suitable girl?" "Girl? At your age, you still want to ruin a little girl. Are you still human?" Madman suddenly turned hostile and said angrily. The two of them were stunned. "No. Didn't you say it yourself just now that we are all promising young men? You believe whatever I say." Madman grinned. The two of them were helpless. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "About a girl, you should find one yourself. After all, we now believe in free love." "Okay, but you have to promise us that you will be our witnesses in the future. Treat this as a reward for us." Pai Lupi chuckled. "This is the reward you want. You're too unambitious." Qin Feiyong was speechless. "But now we really don't lack anything. It's all your fault. You gave us everything, making us lose the goal to strive for and the joy of life." The two of them looked at Qin Feiyong bitterly. If it was in the past, they would definitely not dare to joke like this. But now they were familiar with Qin Feiyong and were a lot bolder. "So it's still my fault?" Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them in astonishment. "If it's not your fault, whose fault is it?" The two of them bared their teeth. "All right, then I'll be wrong to the end." Qin Feiyong sighed and said with a smile, "Right now, all of you only have 6 ultimate profundities, right? Go find the fire lotus and take the remaining 2 inheritances. This way, you will be able to fuse 8 ultimate profundities." "Really?" The two of them were overjoyed. "If you don't want it, I won't force you." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Think about it. Thank you for your praise, Lord Ruler. We will continue to work hard and solve all your worries." The two of them nodded, then turned around and ran towards the Fire Lotus's courtyard. These two fellows are becoming more and more active. I can't find the restraint they had in the past. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. In front of us, there's still a sense of restraint. I think in this world, there is no master who is more reasonable and approachable than us, Madman said proudly. Loki, Loki, White-Eyed Wolf waved his hand, but his expression was also full of pride. Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them echoing each other and couldn't help but find it funny. He asked, "Then tell me, how should we deal with the king of the underworld and the others?" "It doesn't matter. They have already lost their ultimate profundities. Even if we let them go, what can we do?" Madman said proudly. "That's right. Heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. Let's not kill anymore." "Who said that last time?" "To obtain the power of faith, it seems that we can't kill too much." White-Eyed Wolf was suspicious. "Speaking of the power of faith, we have done a lot of good things over the years. Why haven't I felt any power of faith until now?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "This should be something that can't be rushed. Anyway, our strength isn't weak now. Let's leave the power of faith to fate." Madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyong nodded, got up and appeared in the sky above Soul Ceiling Valley. Everyone was suppressed below, looking at Qin Feiyong's appearance, whether it was Dong Yi and the others, or the sea beasts like the king of the underworld. Their faces were full of resentment, because now Long Chun had removed his control over them, so they were full of resentment towards Qin Feiyong. "Don't look at me like that. This is a world where the strong preys on the weak. However, I won't kill you. After going out, you all have to take care of yourselves." Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and everyone and all the sea beasts instantly disappeared without a trace. The originally crowded soul-sealing valley also became empty. Only one person was left. This was Dongqin. However, from the beginning to the end, Dongqin didn't even look at Qin Feiyang. She was like a walking corpse. Qin Feiyang glanced at Dongqin, didn't say anything, and directly turned around and left. Qin Feiyang, golden-winged wolf king. Madman Amo, I swear I will not let you go. And the king of the underworld. Just you wait. When my central dynasty army arrives, you all will die. Outside, above the sea, Dong Yi and the others roared again and again, their eyes full of resentment. What does it have to do with me? Aren't I the same as you all? The king of the underworld roared. That's right. You are the one who implicated us, and now you're blaming us. If you didn't come to the taboo ocean, would Qin Feiyang and the others enter the taboo ocean? If it weren't to help you, would we have been killed by them? You really don't know what's good for you. A group of war generals also glared at Dong Yi and the others. Who are you saying doesn't know what's good for them? Say it again, believe it or not. We will destroy you all. Dong Dayuan roared. Without the control of the soul-controlling art, he was now extremely violent. So what if I say you all? It's not just you. Everyone from the central dynasty is trash. After so many years, you can't even get rid of one Qin Feiyang. You can go back and tell the emperor that if this continues, the divine kingdom will be finished sooner or later. The king of the underworld snorted coldly, and then led a group of war generals and 220,000 sea beasts into the taboo ocean, disappearing in a mighty manner. Dong Dayuan and the others looked at each other, and then at the void where the black tortoise realm was, and then they all self-destructed their divine souls. This time, they really went for wool and came home shorn. Soon, Qin Feiyang and the others appeared above the sea. Looking at the empty void, the white-eyed wolf bared his teeth and said, "You all ran pretty fast." It wasn't easy to get away. Why don't you run and wait for death here? The madman laughed and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Why don't we hunt those 8 people now? If we don't kill them, are we going to keep them alive for the new year?" Qin Feiyang waved his hand and opened a space-time passage. But at this moment, buzz! The divine sound transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He took out the divine sound transmission stone and looked down. A trace of surprise immediately crept onto his face. "What's wrong?" The madman and the white-eyed wolf were suspicious. Qin Feiyang didn't answer. He led the 2 back to the black tortoise realm and then activated the divine sound transmission stone. A familiar figure appeared. It was the Divine King. The Divine King? The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Wasn't there someone on the Divine Island? Why did he take the initiative to send them a message? The Divine King smiled and said, "I finally contacted you. It seems that you have come out of the taboo ocean." "Just came out." Qin Feiyang nodded. "What's the result?" The Divine King asked. "Would there be any accidents if we went out?" "Not only were there no accidents, we even wiped out all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean." The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. "What? Wiped out all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean?" The Divine King was surprised. What did that mean? Qin Feiyang said, "How about this? Call the king, Ji Yunhai and Ji Zun. We'll find a place to talk face to face." "Okay, let's go to Mount Supreme." The Divine King nodded. "Isn't there someone from the Central Dynasty at Mount Supreme? Is it suitable for us to go there now?" Qin Feiyang asked. "It's fine. The crisis has been temporarily resolved. Go directly to Ji Zun's residence." The Divine King smiled. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. The crisis has been temporarily resolved? What did that mean? The white-eyed wolf frowned and said, "Could it be that those 8 people heard something and left already?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "Let's go to Mount Supreme and find out." Mount Supreme. Ji Yun Hai, the king, Ji Zun, and the divine king gathered in a palace. "It's finally easy now." Ji Zun chuckled. "Yeah, I've been on tenterhooks for the past few days, afraid that I'd give myself away." Ji Yun Hai also said, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. The divine king looked at Ji Yun Hai and said, "Now you can understand the situation we've been in all these years. Ever since I started working with Qin Feiyang, I've never had a day of peace." Ji Yun Hai smiled bitterly. The experience of the past few days had indeed made him realize how difficult it was for the former king, the divine king, Ji Zun, and heavenly Lord Ji. Wang. A space-time tunnel appeared. The four of them looked at the tunnel. 3 young men walked out. It was Qin Feiyang and the other 2. The king looked at the 3 of them and asked curiously, "Look at your glowing faces. Did you make a fortune?" "More or less." Madman bared his teeth. The divine king's face darkened. He glared at Madman and said, "Don't keep us in suspense. What did you mean by killing all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean?" Qin Feiyang and the other 2 looked at each other. "Actually, it's nothing much. While we were chasing Dong Yi and the others, we also took care of the underworld king and the others, and also stole hundreds of thousands of ultimate mysteries inheritances." The white-eyed wolf sat on the chair next to them, shook his head, and said proudly, "So we took care of the underworld king and the others." The 4 of them suddenly realized, "Wait a minute." But the next moment, they looked at each other. Why does that sound wrong? Stole hundreds of thousands of ultimate mysteries inheritances? Did they hear it wrong? Hundreds of thousands of inheritances? How could there be so many ultimate mysteries inheritances in the taboo ocean? If there really were, they would have joined forces to kill their way to the taboo ocean. Who cares about the underworld king and the other generals? This was too sudden, so the king and the other 3 couldn't wrap their heads around it. "You guys think about it carefully." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. The 4 of them lowered their heads, frowning. Previously, they said that they killed all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean. Now they said that they obtained hundreds of thousands of ultimate mysteries inheritances. Sea beasts? Inheritances? Hundreds of thousands? Could it be? The 4 of them suddenly raised their heads and stared at Qin Feiyang and the other 2, their eyes filled with shock and disbelief. "That's right. In the entire taboo ocean, all the sea beasts that have mastered ultimate mysteries have been robbed by us." "How is it?" "Surprised, surprised." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth, looking very annoying. As soon as these words came out, the king and the other 3 were completely stunned. This is too crazy. They actually stole the ultimate mysteries of all the sea beasts? End of this chapter. Chapter 4407. How did you guys do it? It's only been about 2 months since we entered the taboo ocean. Ji Yun Hai came back to his senses and looked at the 3 of them in confusion. As everyone knows, teleportation is impossible in the taboo ocean. To hunt all the sea beasts that have mastered the ultimate profound is basically more difficult than ascending to the sky. But these 3 guys succeeded in such a short period of time. It's really hard to imagine. It's very simple. As long as we control the ruler of the taboo ocean, it will be easy to deal with the other sea beasts. Qin Feiyang gave a simple and clear account of what had happened. So that's how it is. The king and the other 3 suddenly understood, and then couldn't help but give a thumbs up. How many ultimate profound of the strongest law? The divine king was curious. More than 253,000. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? The 4 of them were shocked to this point. They had never seen so many ultimate profound in their lives. And it was the ultimate profound of the strongest law. Ji Yun Hai said very excitedly, "If this is the case, don't we now have the strength to fight against the central dynasty?" We can't make a judgment on this matter yet. We have to wait for the inner demons and Big Cousin to thoroughly investigate the situation of the Death God army. Qin Feiyang said, Good, good, good. Now I can already see hope. I believe that as long as we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat the Central Dynasty. Ji Yunhai clenched his hands tightly. His eyes were full of confidence. The human race supreme being asked, What about Yu Hui and Min Hong? They are both in my ancient castle. As for the battle souls of these two, I was just about to discuss with you. Qin Feiyang was deep in thought. Go ahead. This matter would have to be faced sooner or later, because Yu Hui and Min Hong's old enemies were all around Qin Feiyang, and they were all Qin Feiyang's closest people. I have an idea. Use the ultimate inheritance of the strongest law to exchange battle souls with them. Qin Feiyang said. This was also the best way Qin Feiyang could think of at the moment. Exchange battle souls? The supreme master of the human race remained silent. The monarch chuckled and said, Supreme martial artist, the fact that this brat can offer such conditions is already considered extremely benevolent. That's right. If it weren't for you, they would have snatched it away. Moreover, the Eye of Oblivion and the Eye of Destruction are meaningless without evolution. As for Yu Hui and Min Hong, they will never be able to evolve their fighting souls, because it's impossible for this kid to let Lin Yi and Lu Zhenyang hand over their battle souls for Yu Hui and the others to fuse with. The Divine King added, That was indeed the case. As for the two of them, Qin Feiyang didn't have any feelings towards them. If he wanted to kill them, he would kill them. The reason why he offered this condition was entirely because of the face of the human race's supreme master. The supreme martial artist of the human race looked at the monarch and the divine king. He pondered for a moment and sighed. The battle souls belong to Yu Hui and Min Hong. Their choice is up to them. Madman asked, In that case, should we call them out and talk? That works too. However, we have to pretend that it's a judgment. After all, the two of them still don't know that we have formed an alliance. The Divine King said, Everyone nodded. Yu Hui and Min Hong still couldn't be trusted, and they couldn't be trusted. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. With a wave of his hand, the two of them appeared immediately. Supreme martial artist, Divine King, Monarch. When the two saw the monarch and the other two, they were shocked and shouted, Supreme martial artist, please save us. Don't worry, we are negotiating with them. Supreme martial artist comforted the two. Negotiation. The two were taken aback. The human race supreme martial artist nodded and sighed. Qin Feiyang and the others want you to hand over your battle souls. Impossible! But before the human race supreme martial artist finished speaking, the two shook their heads resolutely. Their attitude was very firm. Aren't you afraid of death? Don't think that with supreme martial artist, the monarch, and the divine king here you are safe. If we want to kill you, the three of them can't stop us. Madman sneered coldly. Yu Hui and Min Hong's pupils shrank. The human race supreme martial artist looked at the two and said, Listen to this supreme martial artist first. Although they want you to hand over your battle souls, they will compensate you. Compensation? The two frowned. What could be more valuable than the strongest battle soul? The human race supreme martial artist said, Their compensation is to give you the inheritance of the strongest law's ultimate meaning. The inheritance of the strongest law's ultimate meaning? The two were stunned. Yes, you are very clear about the rarity of the strongest law's ultimate meaning. As long as you hand over your battle souls, I will give you enough inheritance to let you master the will of the heavens. Qin Feiyang nodded. The will of the heavens. The two's eyes trembled. In this world, who doesn't desire the will of the heavens? Once you master the will of the heavens, you will stand at the peak of the divine kingdom. For example, why can the sovereigns of various races be above all living beings? It's because they master the will of the heavens. Yes, you didn't hear it wrong. The compensation we give you is not just 1 or 2 inheritances, but the will of the heavens. I believe that this compensation should be enough to make up for your loss, Qin Feiyang said. Yu Hui and Min Hong looked at each other, suppressed their excitement, and remained silent. They did desire the will of the heavens, but they also desired the evolution of the battle soul, because once their battle soul evolves, it will have the power to destroy the world. As the possessor of the strongest battle soul, I know what you are thinking at this moment. You want both the battle soul and the will of the heavens. But let me tell you, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to give up one. Isn't there a saying that goes like this? You have to give up something to gain something. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The two looked at Qin Feiyang and remained silent. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a woman in a white dress appeared. It was Lin Yi. Lin Yi's appearance immediately attracted Min Hong's attention, because Min Hong was the possessor of the Eyes of Oblivion. When the old enemies met, both sides rejected each other in their hearts. Is she Lin Yi? The divine king, Ji Zun and Ji Yun Hai, asked secretly. I have been in contact with her in the Black Tortoise world. She is a very sensible little girl. The king nodded. Lin Yi looked at Min Hong and immediately understood what Qin Feiyang was doing. She transmitted her voice. Brother Feiyang, didn't I say that I will deal with this matter myself? Elder brother is like a father. How can I listen to you? Qin Feiyang snickered secretly. Lin Yi heard it, and her face was full of helplessness. Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at Min Hong and indifferently said, Do you see? This is your old enemy, and your old enemy is my little sister. Do you think that you have the ability to snatch her battle soul from my hands? The words were very plain, and there was no hint of sarcasm. But when it fell into Min Hong's ears, it seemed to be contempt for her. This made her angry. However, what followed was a deep sense of powerlessness. Because this was indeed the case, Lin Yi was Qin Feiyang's sister. If one wanted to take away Lin Yi's battle soul, one must first go through Qin Feiyang. Who was Qin Feiyang? The possessor of the Eyes of Heaven, mastered 3,000 incarnations, the law of life and death, and dual will of heavenly Tao. Even if she had mastered the will of heavenly Tao now, it was impossible to defeat Qin Feiyang. Not to mention her, even the divine king, the king, and Ji Zun had to retreat in the face of Qin Feiyang. In today's 4 great continents, the only people who could suppress Qin Feiyang were the elders of the purple gold divine dragon clan. As for Yu Hui, your Eye of Destruction will never have the chance to evolve, because the other half of the Eye of Destruction is in my ancestor. Qin Feiyang looked at Yu Hui again. Yu Hui's face couldn't help but turn pale. If it was in someone else's body, they still had hope. But now, whether it was the Eye of Destruction or the Eye of Oblivion, they were both related to Qin Feiyang, and they were Qin Feiyang's close relatives. In the face of such a terrifying Qin Feiyang, how could they find an opportunity to snatch it away? In fact, now there are only 2 choices in front of you. The madman quickly lost his patience and looked at Yu Hui and Ji Zun. The first choice, we will kill you directly and take away your battle souls. The second choice, you hand over your battle souls and we will compensate you. You have to think carefully. The second choice, although you will lose your battle souls, you can at least master the will of heavenly Tao and become the top powerhouse of the 4 great continents. But if you change to the first choice, then you will not only lose your battle souls, but also your life. The white-eyed wolf laughed. When the 2 heard the words of the madman and the white-eyed wolf, their eyes couldn't help but tremble. Anyway, your battle souls have no chance to evolve. Why not give it to them in exchange for the will of heavenly Tao? It's worth it. The human clan Jizun sighed. The two looked up at the human clan Jizun, and their hearts were extremely sad. The leader of the human clan of the Divine Kingdom not only didn't help them snatch Lin Yi and Lu Jingyang's battle souls, but now he asked them to hand over their battle souls. I know that you will definitely blame me in your hearts, but this is the fact in front of you. Our strength is not as good as theirs. If it weren't for them being afraid of the group of elders of the Purple Gold Divine Dragon Clan, I'm afraid they wouldn't even give us a chance to negotiate. The human clan, Jizun, smiled bitterly. When Yu Hui and Jizun heard this, they bowed their heads in silence. They were really unwilling in their hearts. But now, they really had no other choice. In the end, the two looked at each other, gritted their teeth, looked up at Qin Feiyang and nodded. Okay, we will give it to you. Qin Feiyang immediately revealed a smile on his face. He said, Isn't this a happy occasion for everyone? Give us the inheritance first, and give us the inheritance of all the laws, including the ultimate mysteries of the ordinary laws. Yu Hui said, Not bad. Using the two strongest battle souls in exchange for these inheritances, I don't think it's too much. Min Hong nodded. The inheritance of all the laws? You guys are really greedy. The madman's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Qin Feiyang stretched out his hand to stop the madman and smiled faintly. It's okay. It's just a few dozen inheritances. Satisfy them. The human clan Jizun was here. He had to give him face. End of this chapter. Chapter 4408. Seeing Madman's murderous intent, the human supreme was a little worried. But when he saw Qin Feiyang stopping Madman and agreeing to Yu Hui's request, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. His mood was like riding a roller coaster, up and down. Tell me, what laws do you still lack? But let's make it clear first. There is no law of light and darkness and law of life and death. Qin Feiyang looked at the two and smiled faintly. The law of light and darkness and law of life and death are rare in the world. Of course, we won't force it. Yu Hui shook his head and said, I need the law of destruction, law of death, law of life. After Yu Hui finished speaking, Min Hong also spoke. Qin Feiyang silently remembered it in his heart. After Min Hong finished speaking, he immediately asked Fire Lotus to prepare. Soon, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and dozens of inheritances appeared in front of him. The ultimate profound of the strongest law and the ultimate profound of the ordinary law. Yu Hui and Lin Ming looked at each other, took a deep breath, and stepped forward to collect all the inheritances. Immediately, the two closed their eyes. Puff! Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spurted out. The two's faces instantly turned pale as if they were weak. Immediately after, two great battle souls rushed out from between their eyebrows. These were two palm-sized eyes. One was black-gray, full of a destructive aura. The other was silver-white, containing a magical power. Looking at this eye, it seems that you will forget everything. These were the Eye of Destruction and the Eye of Oblivion. Quickly fuse. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Lin Yi and smiled. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. Originally, she wanted to rely on her own ability to defeat this old enemy and get the other half of the Eye of Oblivion. But she didn't expect that Brother Feiyang would send the battle souls to her without doing anything. White-eyed Wolf looked at Lin Yi speechlessly and said, If it were someone else, they would have jumped for joy. But you, girl, are still a little unhappy? Brother Wolf, don't sow discord. I just don't want to rely on you for everything. Lin Yi looked at him unhappily. Since entering the ancient realm, you don't seem to have relied on us. Hurry up! Let me see how strong the evolved Oblivion Eye is. The white-eyed wolf bared its fangs. All right. Lin Yi nodded. The space between her eyebrows split open. A silver-white eye appeared. It was exactly the same as Min Hong's Eyes of Oblivion. When the two Eyes of Oblivion met, They seemed to sense each other's existence. The Eye of Oblivion suspended in front of Min Hong immediately rushed toward the Eye of Oblivion between Min Hong's eyebrows. Boom! Accompanied by a dazzling divine light, the two eyes immediately merged together. There were no changes to its shape or appearance, but both Qin Feiyang and his crew, as well as the monarch's group, could feel a strange force looming over them. Immediately, they could clearly feel that their memories were deteriorating and gradually becoming blurry. Whoosh! Suddenly, Lin Yi raised her head. The Eye of Oblivion between her eyebrows stared at the human sovereign, the monarch, the divine king, and Ji Yunhai. Boom! In just an instant, the minds of the four men went blank. All their memories disappeared at this moment. It seemed that the monarch and the other three were like four pieces of wood at this moment. So powerful. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other in dismay. Yu Hui and Min Hong were also dumbfounded. The evolved Eye of Oblivion couldn't even resist the tyrannical existence of the monarch. This made Min Hong couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. Why did she give up such a powerful battle soul to this Lin Yi? If she was the one who evolved the battle soul now, this Eye of Oblivion alone was enough to stand at the peak of the divine kingdom. For a moment, the regret, jealousy, and resentment in her heart had reached an uncontrollable level. It's all because of this damn Qin Feiyang, Madman Amo, and the Golden-Winged Wolf King. They made her lose such a powerful battle soul. You better not let me find a chance. Otherwise, I will make you bastards suffer a fate worse than death. This kind of meltdown almost drove her crazy. About a few seconds passed. A powerful will suddenly appeared in the bodies of the divine king, Jizun, and the monarch. This will was their own will, but at the same time it contained the will of heavenly Tao. With the eruption of will, the three finally broke the control of the Eye of Oblivion, and the lost memory quickly recovered. But Ji Yunhai didn't recover, because his strength wasn't as good as the monarch and the other two. He sat motionless on the chair with dull eyes like a human-shaped sculpture. So scary. The monarch and the other two looked at Lin Yi with cold sweat all over their bodies. Although they had only lost their memories for a short period of time, it must be known that if they suddenly lost their memories in the middle of a battle, they would definitely be met with a calamity. A few seconds was enough to kill each other in a battle between powerhouses. Sure enough, it was the strongest battle soul. It was not inferior to the Eye of Despair and the Eye of Evil. This Eye of Oblivion was actually similar in nature to the Eye of Despair and the Eye of Evil. It destroyed the opponent's willpower and mental strength. Brother Wolf, it's okay. Lin Yi turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and smiled. Don't look at me. The white-eyed wolf quickly waved his hand. Don't be nervous. I can control the Eye of Oblivion at will. Only the people I want to target in my heart will be deprived of their memory. Lin Yi said. I see. The white-eyed wolf breathed a sigh of relief and immediately gave a thumbs up. There was only one word to describe it. Awesome. Lin Yi smiled proudly, then closed the Eye of Oblivion. At this time, Ji Yunhai's memory gradually recovered. When he recovered, he looked up at Lin Yi with fear in his eyes. If the Eye of Oblivion was activated during a battle, it could definitely be regarded as a peerless killing technique. No matter who it was, they would suffer. Seal this Eye of Destruction first and put it in my training room. I will give it to the ancestor when I see him in the future. Qin Feiyang also calmed down the shock in his heart. With a wave of his hand, the Eye of Destruction disappeared. Now, except for the Eye of Reincarnation, the 9 battle souls have evolved. Facing the Central Dynasty, we undoubtedly have a better chance of winning now. The deity king laughed inwardly. Eye of Reincarnation, Qin Feiyang murmured and transmitted his voice. Sovereign, let Yu Hui and Min Hong retreat first. Okay. The human sovereign responded secretly. looked at Yu Hui and Min Hong and said, "You two retreat first. Think about it. It's not too much of a loss to get so many inheritances." "Yes." The two nodded respectfully and turned to leave the hall. "Min Hong, you're not reconciled, right?" The two stood outside the hall, looking at the door that was quickly closing. Yu Hui clenched his hands and transmitted his voice. Min Hong nodded. The power of the Eye of Oblivion after its evolution was beyond imagination. "I'm not reconciled either. But now we have to endure. We have obtained all the inheritances. As long as we integrate these inheritances, we will have a chance to settle the score with them," Yu Hui said secretly. "What do you want to do?" Min Hong looked at him in surprise. "This is not the place to talk. Let's go to my cave house and we can talk slowly." A murderous intent flashed in Yu Hui's eyes, and he led Min Hong away at lightning speed. Inside the hall, Qin Feiyang looked at the closed door, shook his head, and smiled. It seems that these two are very dissatisfied with this matter. It is estimated that in the future it may become a problem. "Is it?" The sovereign was suspicious. There was nothing wrong with looking at Min Hong and Yu Hui before. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "They hid it very well, but they can't escape my eyes. I have already sensed the murderous intent in their hearts." Hearing this, the human sovereign couldn't help but frown. Lin Yi turned her head to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "Brother Feiyang, why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said so earlier, I would have directly deprived them of their memories." "What's the use of you depriving them of their memories? Almost everyone in Mount Supreme knows that they have the strongest battle soul. Apart from that, you have deprived the memories of everyone who knows." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "That's true." Lin Yi nodded. "Then let's just get rid of them to avoid future troubles. In the future, when they integrate all the inheritances, it will be quite troublesome if they really play tricks behind the scenes." Madman said. Qin Feiyang chuckled and said, "Senior brother, they're disciples of Mount Supreme. We outsiders can't overstep our authority." The implication was that it was up to the human sovereign to decide what to do. The supreme master of the human clan was silent. Suddenly, he took out the sound transmission godstone. Buzz! A shadow appeared. It was the Great Venerable. "Sir." The Great Venerable bowed. The human sovereign said, "Go and monitor Min Hong and Yu Hui. If they have any evil intentions, kill them directly. Monitor them. What's the situation?" The Great Venerable was surprised. The human sovereign said, "I'll tell you the specific situation later. Just do as I say." "Okay, I'll go right away." The Great Venerable nodded and immediately turned off the sound transmission godstone. The human sovereign also put away the sound transmission godstone. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he said unhappily, "You brat, do you really think that I'm so merciful that I can't even bear to kill two disasters?" "No, no." Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hands. The human sovereign pursed his lips and said, "Say it." "Send them away." "What do you want to say?" "The Eye of Reincarnation. I hope that everyone can help me check if the other half of the Eye of Reincarnation is in the 4 great continents." Qin Feiyang looked at the 4 of them and said, "Wait." The white-eyed wolf hurriedly interrupted Qin Feiyang and frowned. "Didn't Dong Jingyang say that the other half of the Eye of Reincarnation is in the dragons? What are you looking for in the 4 great continents? The range of dragons is too wide. What if it's in the hands of an unknown divine dragon? After all, the divine dragons in the world should logically belong to the dragons. Therefore, there's still a need to investigate thoroughly." Qin Feiyang said. The white-eyed wolf thought for a moment and nodded. "Up to you. That's simple. We'll ask the great venerables below to investigate." The divine king said, "There's one more thing. The oceanic race, the beast race, and the sea beasts of the Forbidden Ocean have been destroyed one after another. But the human race, the divine race, and the purple-gold divine dragon race haven't suffered too much damage yet." The people of the Central Dynasty aren't stupid. Sooner or later, they'll have doubts about this matter. So you have to be prepared in advance and deal with it at any time. You also have to prevent them from secretly monitoring you. Qin Feiyang said, "That makes sense." They nodded. This matter indeed couldn't be careless. End of chapter. Chapter 4409. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and looked at the four of them. Also, help us find someone while you're at it. Who? The four of them were suspicious. That mysterious young man. Qin Feiyang looked at the king and said, "Mysterious young man?" The divine king, the human race's supreme being, and Ji Yunhai looked at Qin Feiyang and the king in confusion. The king smiled bitterly. This mysterious young man is the one who claims to be Qin Batian. So it's him. He claims to be Qin Batian? What does that mean? The three of them were even more puzzled. It means that he's not the real Qin Batian, he's an impostor. The king shook his head. What? The three of them were shocked. This young man who shocked the divine kingdom and even defeated the inner demons wasn't Qin Batian? I didn't know before. This brat told me when we were in the Black Tortoise world. The king didn't forget to glare at Qin Feiyang. You already knew that he was impersonating Qin Batian? The divine king looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. He didn't hide anything from us. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then, where is the real Qin Batian now? Ji Yunhai asked. According to seniority, he was Qin Baishan's second grandfather, so he was somewhat concerned. We don't know, but we can be sure that his life isn't in danger. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's good. Ji Yunhai nodded and smiled bitterly. How many more things are you hiding from us? Indeed. The king glared at Qin Feiyang and then at the divine king. This matter is related to the Death God army, but I'll tell you about it later. The Death God army? The three of them looked at each other and their curiosity was piqued. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, what about the 8 people from the Central Dynasty? Speaking of which, it's quite funny. Weren't they in the village at that time? Did they meet you? They felt that their whereabouts had been exposed and that you might attack them. So they destroyed their bodies and souls. Ji Yunhai chuckled. Before they even made a move, the 8 of them were already so scared that they destroyed their own bodies and souls and fled from the 4 great continents. It could be seen how terrifying Qin Feiyang and the others were now. I see. Then they are quite smart. We're really going to hunt them down. The white-eyed wolf grimaced. The monarch and the others exchanged glances and smiled. The divine king asked, "Have you found out who they are?" Yes, they are indeed not from the Death God army. Qin Feiyang nodded. What, aren't they a little too bold? How dare they pretend to be members of the Death God army? The 4 of them were shocked. This is called seeking riches in danger. They are all from the second direct family of the Central Dynasty. This time they came to the 4 great continents to find an opportunity to kill us. As for bringing you Hui and Min Hong to the Central Dynasty, this was a last-minute plan they came up with. Qin Feiyang smiled. I see. The divine king smiled and said mockingly, but they didn't expect that not only did their plan fail, but they also lost so many people. The second direct family is not strong in the Central Dynasty to begin with. They are simply courting death by doing this. But this also shows that the Central Dynasty is not as united as we thought. Qin Feiyang said, That's for sure. No matter where you are, it's unavoidable for you to cheat and scheme against each other. The monarch nodded and then changed the topic. He said with a smile, But then again, since you have obtained so many ultimate mysteries this time, shouldn't you take care of us? The meaning behind his words was obvious. He wanted Qin Feiyang to give the 3 races some ultimate mysteries. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He pointed to the door and shouted, Look, Someone is eavesdropping. N. The four of them were shocked and quickly looked at the door. At the same time, Qin Feiyang opened a space-time tunnel. Immediately, he rolled up the madman, white-eyed wolf, and Lin Yi and rushed into the space-time tunnel. The monarch and the other three reacted. Looking at the backs of the four people in the space-time tunnel, the corners of their mouths kept twitching. They are really cunning. Too stingy. There are so many ultimate mysteries. What's wrong with giving us some? The divine king was unhappy. You should be content. After all, you have given us so much. The human sovereign shook his head and smiled. If he really wanted to give, he would not be polite. He would not give nor force. Let nature take its course. At the same time, in a cave house, Min Hong and Yu Hui sat opposite each other. The door of the cave house was closed. What's your plan? Min Hong looked at Yu Hui expectantly. My plan is very simple. The people of the Central Dynasty will come sooner or later. At that time, we will assist the Central Dynasty to eradicate these bastards. Yu Hui's eyes flickered with murderous intent. Yes, as long as the Central Dynasty's army arrives, we will have a lot of opportunities, right? Min Hong's eyes lit up. Yes. Also, have you ever thought about a question? Why would Ji Zun, the divine king, the monarch, and Ji Yin Hai gather with Qin Feiyang in private? Yu Hui's eyes flickered. Isn't it because of our negotiation? Min Hong frowned. It's not like you don't know the means of Qin Feiyang and the others. They completely control us and force us to hand over the battle souls. Why would they go through so much trouble to negotiate with Ji Zun and the others? Yu Hui asked rhetorically. Min Hong pondered for a while and said, they seem to have said just now that it is because they are afraid of the elders of the purple gold divine dragon clan. Those elders are indeed scary, but as long as we don't clash with them, won't we be fine? Look at Qin Feiyang and the others. Their whereabouts are uncertain every day. As long as they hide, do you think those elders will be able to find them even if they attack? Yu Hui sneered. What do you mean? Min Hong was more and more confused. What I mean is that this negotiation is completely unnecessary. So, I think there must be some secrets that we don't know about. Yu Hui said. Secrets? Min Hong's eyes flickered. Although we can't guess it, as long as we tell the Central Dynasty the truth, they will definitely pay attention to it. I'm not afraid to tell you that not only do I have to deal with Qin Feiyang and the others, but I also have to deal with Ji Zun. Yu Hui clenched his fists. Deal with Ji Zun? Min Hong was shocked. That's right. As the leader of the human race, not only did he not help us, he even asked us to hand over the battle souls. What right does he have to continue to be the leader of the human race? Yu Hui's face was filled with hatred. That's true. Why did we enter Mount Supreme? Isn't it because we want Mount Supreme to protect us? But in the end, facing Qin Feiyang and the others, we Ji Zun don't even dare to breathe loudly. How cowardly! Min Hong couldn't help but feel hatred in her heart. So, we have to endure it now. After we combine all the ultimate powers and join hands with the Central Dynasty, we might be the next supreme being of the humankind. Yu Hui sneered. His ambition was also exposed at this moment. What a bunch of white-eyed wolves. At this moment, a cold, bone-chilling voice rang out. Great Sovereign! The two were shocked and stood up. They looked at the door of the cave. Behind the closed door, a black-robed elder suddenly appeared. It was the great sovereign of the human race. At this moment, the great sovereign's face was filled with anger. How did this happen? Why is he here? Yu Hui and Yu Hui panicked. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I would find it hard to believe that there's such a heartless and ambitious person in Mount Supreme. The great sovereign took a step forward, and a terrifying pressure directly imprisoned the two. Great Sovereign, please spare our lives. We were confused for a moment and had such thoughts. Please give us a chance. The two hurriedly knelt on the ground and kowtowed to beg for mercy. There won't be another chance. By the way, let me tell you a secret so that you won't die in peace. We have already formed an alliance with Qin Feiyang. When the great sovereign said this, the fate of the two was already doomed. In the village, in the sky, Qin Feiyang and the other three walked out of a space-time tunnel. Lin Yi pursed her lips and smiled. Brother Feiyang, aren't you afraid that the king and the others will say that you are stingy? Let them say whatever they want. Qin Feiyang didn't care at all. These inheritances must all be left to the disciples of the sacred ground. As for the three major races, anyway, there was still a long way to go. He still had to fight with the Death God Legion in the future. With so many members of the Death God Legion, there was no need to worry about not getting the ultimate intense. In short, since the three major races chose to form an alliance with him, he would definitely not treat the three major races badly. You are back. Sensing the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others, Boss Ji and a group of elders also walked out of the house quickly. Qin Feiyang nodded, landed in front of a group of elders, pulled Lin Yi to his side, and said with a smile, These are the great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers we mentioned. Great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. She is the owner of the Eyes of Oblivion, Lin Yi. Greets great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. Lin Yi looked at the group of elders. Sure enough, all of them were unfathomable. She then bowed obediently. Good. I have heard this kid talk about you for a long time. Now that I see you, you are really well-behaved and sensible. When you come here, just treat it as your own home. Don't feel constrained. The group of elders chuckled, looking amiable. Okay, Lin Yi nodded. Swoosh! At this time, Master Jizhou also flew over from the back mountain tea garden with Ji Tianyue. Is everything settled? Ji Tianyue asked. It's all settled. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. You are really capable. Ji Tianyue chuckled, looked at Lin Yi and said suspiciously, Why are you outside? Lin Yi said, I just merged with the Eyes of Oblivion at Mount Supreme, so I wanted to come with Brother Feiyang to meet these great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers. Your Eyes of Oblivion has been merged? Ji Tianyue was taken aback. Lin Yi nodded. Old ancestor, do you want to experience the power of the Eyes of Oblivion? The white-eyed wolf looked at Ji Tianyue and grinned. Ji Tianyue's mouth twitched. Although she had never seen the evolved Eyes of Oblivion, she could imagine that it was definitely not an ordinary horror. Who would experience this for no reason? End of this chapter. Chapter 44:10. Let's talk inside. In the future, we still have to be careful when we meet, so as not to be seen by others again. Boss G sighed. The last time those three people suddenly ran over, it almost traumatized him. Indeed, we have to be careful. Qin Feiyang nodded. Now it's a critical moment. We can't take a wrong step. Entering Boss G's house, everyone sat together and chatted for a while. Qin Feiyang sent Lin Yi to the Black Tortoise world. He, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf didn't leave the village. They stayed here to cultivate while waiting for news. Now, they no longer lack the inheritance of the ultimate profound. What they lack is time. They all need a lot of time to integrate. In a blink of an eye, more than 2 months passed. One morning, Qin Feiyang walked out of the house and looked at Ji Tianyue, standing at the village entrance. He walked over with a smile and asked, Old ancestor, what are you looking at? Looking at the scenery here. After leaving the Divine Kingdom for so many years, not only the people here, but even the things here haven't changed much. Ji Tianyue smiled slightly. Maybe great-grandfather and great-grandmother are worried that you won't recognize them when you come back in the future, so they have kept their original appearance. Qin Feiyong smiled. Only you know how to say nice things. Ji Tianyue rolled her eyes at him. Huh. Qin Feiyong laughed dryly. Ji Tianyue said, Last night, my father sent me a message saying that Yu Hui and Min Hong have been eliminated by the great sage. Already eliminated? Qin Feiyong was taken aback for a moment. He shook his head and sighed. It seems that they are really dishonest. Actually, you also want to kill them, Ji Tianyue said. I won't deny it. If it weren't for the human clan supreme, I would have already done it. Qin Feiyong said, You are right. No matter what kind of person they are disciples of Mount Supreme after all. I have to give face to the human clan supreme. Ji Tianyue smiled. Shouldn't you go to the Black Tortoise world? You can't stay in the village all the time. If someone finds out, our relationship will be exposed. It was because everyone knew that the gate of the divine kingdom had been sealed by him. It was impossible for Ji Tianyue to return from the sky cloud realm alone. The only explanation was that Ji Tianyue had followed Qin Feiyong back to the divine kingdom. Wouldn't that be equivalent to exposing their relationship? Ji Tianyue smiled and said, Indeed, I should go to the Black Tortoise world to cultivate in seclusion. Otherwise, I will definitely become a burden to you in the future. It's fine if you're a burden. I'm afraid that in the future, the reincarnation of the human sovereign will come to me and say that I didn't take good care of you. Qin Feiyong bared his teeth. Ji Tianyue blushed and said angrily, What nonsense are you talking about? The human sovereign is the human sovereign, and the reincarnation of the human sovereign is the reincarnation of the human sovereign. In a sense, they are no longer the same person. Is that what you think? Qin Feiyong was surprised. What else? After reincarnating, he has a new family and new responsibilities. I don't want to disturb him. I also don't want him to be restrained because of his feelings from his previous life. Ji Tianyue smiled. There was no regret in her expression. Family? Qin Feiyong was stunned and said in surprise, Is the reincarnation of the human sovereign already married and has a child? No. The family I'm talking about is that he has a new family. Ji Tianyue shook her head. Not married? Then you still have a chance to continue your previous relationship. Qin Feiyong said, Continue our previous relationship. Don't force yourself on this matter. As long as he has a good life in this life, I'll be satisfied. Ji Tianyue smiled. No complaints and no regrets. Old ancestor, you're really great. If it were me facing the reincarnation of my beloved, I definitely wouldn't be able to do this. If it were the mermaid princess, he would definitely try his best to awaken the memories of her previous life and never let go. Ji Tianyue smiled and said, If you have my experience, you will see a different life. Your experience? Then forget it. Qin Feiyong hurriedly waved his hand. Being sealed in the land of buried gods for countless years and having to suffer the torment of various laws. This might be better than death. Scared? Ji Tianyue looked at him in amusement. What am I scared of? I just feel that if I'm sealed in a certain place, it might be a little boring. Qin Feiyong raised his head and said proudly, You don't mean what you say. Ji Tianyue shook her head. Huh. Qin Feiyong laughed dryly and asked curiously, Who is the reincarnation of the human sovereign? Ji Tianyue was speechless. Still not giving up? She said, Actually, you've seen it. I've seen it? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Not only you have seen it, everyone has seen it. Ji Tianyue nodded. Everyone has seen it. Qin Feiyong was stunned. As for the rest, I won't reveal more. If you can guess it, you have the ability. If not, don't force yourself. Send me to the Black Tortoise world. Ji Tianyue smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. After sending Tianyuet to the Black Tortoise world, he lowered his head and pondered. Everyone has seen it. Who could it be? Wait, it can't be that mysterious young man, right? Because this young man not only has a mysterious origin, but also has 3,000 incarnations. Don't say it. After thinking about it carefully, there really is such a possibility. What are you standing here thinking about? Why don't you go and cultivate? White-eyed Wolf and Frenzy walked out and saw Qin Feiyang standing at the entrance of the village with a heavy heart. They couldn't help but ask in confusion. You came at the right time. Just now, the old ancestor said that we have seen the reincarnation of the human sovereign. I'm thinking, could it be that mysterious young man? Qin Feiyang quickly turned to look at the two and said in surprise, Mysterious young man? Frenzy and White-eyed Wolf looked at each other. Isn't this idea a bit too crazy? Look, this young man's origin is unknown, and he has 3,000 incarnations. The most important thing is that we are not related to him, but he has come to help us again and again. These things don't conform to common sense. Qin Feiyang frowned. When the two heard Qin Feiyang's analysis, they couldn't help but lower their heads and ponder, recalling the scenes when they interacted with the young man. Don't say. The more they thought about it, the more likely it was. If it's really him, then it makes sense for him to help us. However, what's with his origin force? Although the human sovereign's strength was very strong in the sky cloud world, his strength back then doesn't seem to be much now. Could it be that he reincarnated into a good body and became the son of a god of creation? Frenzy was surprised. Qin Feiyang and White-eyed Wolf were stunned. This guy's imagination is even richer than theirs. Buzz! Suddenly, the divine sound stone moved. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and took out the divine sound stone. A shadow appeared. It was the human race's supreme being. Greetings, supreme being. Qin Feiyang and the other two bowed. The human race supreme being waved his hand and said, The two things you asked us to investigate have already been found. Please speak. Qin Feiyang's face was full of expectation. The human race supreme being shook his head and said, We have confirmed repeatedly that the eye of reincarnation is indeed not in the 4 continents. A trace of disappointment appeared in Qin Feiyang's heart. The human race supreme being continued, But we have found the whereabouts of this young man. Where? Frenzy quickly asked. The human race supreme being said, We haven't found the specific location, but the last place he appeared seems to be here. What? The taboo ocean? Qin Feiyang and the other two were surprised. Why did the young man run to the taboo ocean? Could it be that he ran to the central dynasty alone? When did this happen? Qin Feiyang asked. The human race supreme being said, A long time ago, before you returned to the sky cloud world. So early? Qin Feiyang frowned. Frenzy said, If he really ran to the central dynasty alone, what should we do? What else can we do? We can only watch. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Without this young man, they couldn't enter the central dynasty at all. What do you mean by that? Don't tell me you want to enter the central dynasty. The human race supreme being looked at the three in surprise. We do have such plans, because only by entering the central dynasty can we seize the initiative. Moreover, with us holding them back in the central dynasty, you have enough time to fuse with the inheritance. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's too risky. The central dynasty is a tiger's den. Isn't entering the central dynasty the same as sending sheep to the tiger's mouth? The human race supreme being's face was solemn. Not necessarily. Maybe a few wolves will enter the sheep's den. Frenzy bared his teeth. The corner of the human race supreme being's mouth twitched. What kind of joke is this? Your methods are indeed heaven-defying, but the central dynasty is the nest of the divine kingdom's ruler. No matter what, it can't become a sheep's den. Don't worry, we know what to do. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Fine. Consider me worrying for nothing. The human race supreme being shook his head helplessly. In fact, he knew that Qin Feiyang and the others were doing this for the three races. Because when Qin Feiyang and the others entered the Central Dynasty, the battlefield would be shifted to the Central Dynasty, and the three races wouldn't be implicated. The war-torn four great continents would gradually return to peace. They would also be able to live a peaceful life without any worries. But because of this, the human race supreme being felt very guilty. Why did Qin Feiyang and the others risk their lives so much? It was all for the living beings of the four great continents. But as the leader of the human race, he couldn't do anything but watch. Fine. You can stay in the four great continents and wait for our good news. Qin Feiyang looked at the human race supreme being and smiled, then turned to the white-eyed wolf and the madman. No matter what, we have to go to the Forbidden Ocean again. Perhaps this young man hasn't entered the Central Dynasty yet. I hope so. The madman sighed. If the young man was really the reincarnation of the human emperor, they would have to desperately find a way to enter the Central Dynasty. They couldn't let the human emperor take the risk alone in the Central Dynasty. Then let's not delay, shall we go now? The white-eyed wolf asked. I think so. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then I'll go tell great-grandfather and great-grandmother. The white-eyed wolf turned and ran toward the village. Don't go, don't go. Don't let them worry about us like the Supreme Being. Let's go directly. Qin Feiyang opened a space-time tunnel, glanced at the village, and walked in without looking back. The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, smiled, and stepped into the space-time tunnel. Chapter 44:11. Those three brats, do they think we don't know? After Qin Feiyang and the other two left, Boss Ji and a group of elders came out of their houses and stood together, looking at the dissipating space-time tunnel. But I have to admit that they are too sensible and always think of others. How good would it be if our purple gold divine dragon clan could have a few descendants as promising as them? Ji Laoshi shook his head. What are you talking about, Laoshi? Let's not talk about Madman and Wolf Cub for now. Isn't Qin Feiyang our descendant? Ji Laoshi looked at him unhappily. Yes. Ji Laoshi was stunned and quickly nodded. That's right. Qin Feiyang was a descendant of their purple gold divine dragon clan. Boss Ji smiled. Let's hope they can enter the Central Dynasty smoothly. Big brother, you still support them going to the Central Dynasty? Ji Laoshi was stunned. If we don't support them, they won't go? They still have to go, so we might as well support them silently. Boss Ji shook his head. That's true. Ji Laoshi nodded and looked at the dissipating space-time tunnel. He muttered, Those brats must be careful. Taboo Ocean. During this time, the entire ocean was filled with a violent atmosphere. The underworld king, the generals, and the 220,000 sea beasts that grasped ultimate mysteries had all become tyrannical existences. They didn't like anyone, so much so that the other sea beasts in the Taboo Ocean were in a constant state of panic. With the appearance of Qin Feiyang and the other two, an invisible storm was set off in the Taboo Ocean. Why did they come to our Taboo Ocean again? Don't they think they haven't tortured us enough? These three bastards, they bring disaster wherever they go. Why won't the heavens take them away? Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two, these sea beasts were both afraid and angry. What are you looking at? I'm standing right here. What can you do to me? Madman laughed. Don't be arrogant. Someone will take you away sooner or later. The sea beasts shouted crazily. I'll deal with you first. Killing intent flashed in Madman's eyes, but before he could make a move, the surrounding sea beasts fled in terror. Isn't he pretty awesome? Don't be afraid. Madman had a look of disdain. There's no need to waste time with them. Qin Feiyang said as he activated the dual will of the heavenly Tao and the momentary time. He swept up the madman and the white-eyed wolf and tore through the sky like lightning. His speed was so fast that no one could catch their tracks. 10 days passed in a row, but not a single sea beast came out to block their path. The journey was very peaceful. However, beneath the seemingly calm surface, there was an undercurrent surging. Deep inside, in the sky above a sea, a group of people arrived in a grandiose manner. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man. He was about 7 meters tall and wore a black robe. He was thin and gave off a feminine feeling. Behind him, there were about 10,000 people. There were men and women, old and young, but without exception, all of them were wearing the uniforms of the Death God Army. The sword pattern on their chests was enough to intimidate all the creatures in the divine kingdom. That was right. They were the members of the Death God Army. When they passed by an island, a figure rushed out from the island and landed in front of the group. He bowed and said, "Greetings, lords. You are the king of the underworld." The middle-aged man in black stopped and sized up the person standing in front of him. "That's me." The king of the underworld nodded, then knelt in the void and shouted, "Lord, please uphold justice for me." "It's because Qin Feiyang deprived you of your ultimate esoteric skill, right?" The middle-aged man in black said. "How did you know?" The king of the underworld was surprised. The people of the second direct family have already reported this matter to the emperor. This Qin Feiyang is indeed too arrogant, so the emperor ordered me to lead the 10th team to eliminate him. The middle-aged man in black said. "The 10th team?" The king of the underworld was stunned and asked carefully, "May I ask who you are?" The middle-aged man in black said proudly, "I am the commander of the 10th team of the Death God Army, Dong Yumming." "So it's the commander. Greetings, commander." The king of the underworld's eyes trembled, and he prostrated himself at Dong Yumming's feet. "Get up," Dong Yumming said. Yes, the king of the underworld got up. Dong Yumming sighed. "I also know about your situation. You have helped the Central Dynasty several times, but in the end, you have fallen to this point. It's really hard on you. For the Central Dynasty, for the Emperor and others, I will not hesitate to sacrifice my life." The king of the underworld's face was full of flattery. "We have all seen your loyalty. Don't worry, I will help you get back what you have lost." Killing intent flashed in Dong Yumming's eyes, and he said, "Come with me to the 4 great continents. If there is a chance, I will let you kill this enemy with your own hands." "Thank you, Lord Commander. But, Lord, you don't have to go to the 4 great continents anymore, because I have received a report from the sea beasts below. Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, and Golden-Winged Wolf King have entered the taboo ocean again." The Underworld King said, "What? They came to the taboo ocean again?" Dong Yumming was stunned. "Yes. Looking at the direction they are going, they should be planning to go to the Central Dynasty." The Underworld King said, "They still want to go to the Central Dynasty? They really don't know what's good for them." "All right, we will go to the path they must pass and wait for them to walk into the trap." Dong Yumming sneered, then led the members of the Death God Army behind him, turned around, and left in a mighty manner. Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden-Winged Wolf King. "Just you wait, it will be the time of your death." The Underworld King smiled ferociously and hurriedly chased after the group of people. Another few days passed. Late at night, under the night sky, the taboo ocean seemed even darker. Those large and small islands were like giant beasts lurking under the night sky. "Quick! There are 2 sea beasts ahead, aren't there?" Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf pointed at the sea in front and said in surprise, "Sea beasts!" Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo were startled and hurriedly looked up. At the end of the sea in front of them, there were 2 blurry shadows. These two shadows were extremely tall, almost towering into the clouds. But because they were too far away, they couldn't see clearly. The three of them couldn't help but be vigilant and gradually approached the two shadows. However, the result was two giant peaks. The two giant peaks were tens of thousands of feet high. At first glance, they really looked like two ferocious giant beasts standing on the dark sea. And looking from afar, the two giant peaks stood opposite each other, separated by thousands of miles, forming a canyon in the middle. The seawater surged out violently. I thought it was two sea beasts, but it turns out it's just two giant peaks. The white-eyed wolf breathed a sigh of relief. Looking from afar, it was really a little scary. When did you become so timid? The madman looked at him mockingly. Who said so? I'm just a little more vigilant. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Vigilant? The madman laughed and mocked. I think you're the one who's nervous. Scram! The white-eyed wolf glared at him. Don't get angry out of embarrassment. Actually, I can understand you. After all, we're getting closer and closer to the entrance of the Central Dynasty. The madman glanced at the sea ahead, his expression somewhat solemn. Although they had been to the taboo sea more than once, this was the first time they went so deep, so they were more or less nervous. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes had a trace of surprise as he transmitted. Stop arguing. There's killing intent. There's killing intent. The madman and the white-eyed wolf were shocked. They didn't sense it at all. However, they didn't doubt Qin Feiyang's words, because Qin Feiyang had always been very sensitive to killing intent. The two of them secretly became vigilant. Qin Feiyang glanced ahead. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the two giant peaks. The killing intent seemed to be coming from those two giant peaks. Moreover, and there was more than one killing intent. There's an ambush on those two giant peaks. Qin Feiyang made a prompt decision and stopped above the sea. Ambush. Their hearts trembled. If there was really an ambush, it was definitely not the sea beasts of the taboo sea, because it was obvious that the sea beasts of the taboo sea didn't have the guts or the strength to ambush them. Therefore, the only explanation was that it was the Central Dynasty. In other words, if there was really an ambush in front, it must be the people of the Central Dynasty. I wonder if there are many of them. The madman secretly said, if there aren't many of them, would they dare to ambush us? The white-eyed wolf sneered secretly. At the peak of the mountain, the commander of the 10th team stood at the edge of the cliff, using the big tree in front of him to hide his figure, looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two who stopped above the sea in the distance. His brows were tightly knitted together. What happened? Why did they suddenly stop? Could it be that they found us? The king of the underworld was next to the commander, also looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two suspiciously. Impossible. Everyone restrain your aura. Even if I passed by here, if I didn't know in advance, I wouldn't know that there was an ambush unless— the commander's eyes flickered. Unless what? The king of the underworld was puzzled. The commander turned to stare at the king of the underworld and said in a deep voice, unless your sea beasts in the taboo ocean tipped them off. Absolutely impossible. Now, all the sea beasts in the taboo ocean hate them to the core. How could we tip them off? Moreover, these sea beasts don't have the guts. The king of the underworld shook his head. If it's not your sea beasts, could it be that my death god army is the one who tipped them off? The commander's eyes flashed coldly, and he said gloomily, I now have reason to suspect that you may be a spy sent by Qin Feiyang and the others. Depriving you of your ultimate meaning may be a show of suffering. No, I wouldn't dare. The king of the underworld was terrified. This was a serious crime. Commander, they are coming. Suddenly, a member of the death god army next to him spoke. The commander and the king of the underworld turned their heads and saw Qin Feiyang and the other two flying toward them. The king of the underworld breathed a sigh of relief. This time they wouldn't say that he was a spy, right? It was really scary. How could such words be casually said? They would lose their lives. Chapter 44:12. Very soon, Qin Feiyang and the other two flew over. Looking at the two giant peaks, their eyes flashed coldly. Boom! The next moment, 3,000 incarnations, all evil sword, and various ultimate profoundness were activated at the same time. That was right. Since the other party wanted to ambush them, they would take the initiative to strike first. Dong Yiming was shocked. What was going on? He was about to give the order, but he did not expect the other party to make a move before him. Kill! There was a loud roar. All evil sword, more than 20,000 ultimate profoundness, blasted toward the two giant peaks. It arrived in an instant. Damn it! Quickly dodge! Dong Yiming's expression changed. Now he could not care less about exposing his whereabouts. He hurriedly activated the momentary time, grabbed the Ocean Nether King, turned around and flew away, because it was too sudden. It was so sudden that there was no time to counterattack. The other members of the Death God army were the same. They rushed out of the night and fled frantically. So many? Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf looked at these people and could not help but break out in cold sweat. At a glance, there were at least 10,000 people lying in ambush. Fortunately, Qin Feiyang was very sensitive to murderous aura and sensed the danger in advance. Otherwise, he would have died on the spot after being surrounded by these people. Boom! Accompanied by two loud sounds, the two giant peaks shattered. Huge waves that blotted out the sky instantly rose in the sea region. Looking at the members of the Death God army, those who possessed the laws of time managed to narrowly escape the calamity. However, those who did not master the law of time were naturally not so lucky. Their blood splattered everywhere. Even those who were lucky enough to escape were seriously injured and lost their combat ability. After all, this was all evil sword, more than 20,000 ultimate profoundness. Among them, there were 3,000 ultimate profoundness of the law of life and death. If not for the fact that the members of the Death God army were all experienced in combat and did not panic in the face of danger, they would have been wiped out. What the hell is going on? How did they know that we were lying in ambush here? Dong Yiming stopped and turned to look at the members of the Death God army. His face was extremely gloomy. After a rough calculation, now there were only about 8,000 people left. In other words, they had lost nearly 2,000 people in an instant. They had lost so many people before the battle even started. Furthermore, the remaining people were all in an extremely sorry state. To the Death God army, this was a great humiliation. King of the Underworld, Qin Feiyang and the other two flew into the sky and looked up at the group of people. When they saw the King of the Underworld, they were stunned. In his heart, he came to a sudden realization. It must be this person causing trouble again. They are all from the Death God army. There are so many of them. It can't be an entire squad, right? Madman glanced at Dong Yiming and the remaining 8,000 people, and his pupils constricted. This time it was Qin Feiyang's fault. Otherwise, they would have become wandering ghosts by now. You really think highly of us. You actually arranged so many people to ambush us. However, you didn't expect that we would act first, did you? Qin Feiyang sneered. Dong Yiming asked in a deep voice, "How did you know we were ambushing here?" "Who are you? Tell me your name." "We don't talk to nameless people." Madman said with disdain. "Dong Yiming, the commander of the Death God Army's 10th Squad." Dong Yiming spoke. "And he's a big fish?" Qin Feiyang and the other two were surprised. Back then, Dong Yiming was only the deputy commander of the 10th Squad. The gap between a deputy commander and a commander was quite big. White-eyed Wolf muttered, I wonder if this commander knows the situation of the other 9 squads. Capture him and read his memory. Won't you know? Madman smiled and looked at Dong Yuming. You people from the Death God Army are really not afraid of death. Dong Yuming just died not long ago, and now there's another one. What? Dong Yuming died in your hands? Dong Yuming was shocked. Otherwise, do you think he's still in a restaurant? Madman sneered. Bastard, you have completely angered my Death God Army. Dong Yuming roared. We're not even afraid of Dong Qingyuan. Why would we be afraid of you, a mere commander? Madman sneered. But in fact, he was still a little nervous, because there were more than 8,000 people here, which was not a small number. Dong Yuming suppressed his killing intent and said in a deep voice, Before I kill you, answer me first. How did you know we were ambushing here? You'll have to ask the Underworld King. Qin Feiyong laughed. When Dong Yuming heard this, he immediately turned his head to look at the Underworld King. His eyes filled with anger. The Underworld King was taken aback. Then, when he saw Qin Feiyong's mocking eyes, he immediately understood that Qin Feiyong was trying to frame him. He quickly looked at Dong Yuming and shouted, Commander, don't listen to his nonsense. This has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you? Apart from you, I really can't think of anyone else in this taboo ocean who has the ability to order these sea beasts and inform them. Dong Yuming was furious and slapped the Underworld King's head. Qin Feiyong, I curse you to die a horrible death. The Underworld King roared, and then, with a scream, he died on the spot, his body and soul destroyed. Good kill. The madman clapped and laughed. I killed the spy you sent. What are you so happy about? Dong Yuming looked at the madman gloomily. We said that he was a spy, so he was... Don't you have a brain? If he was really one of us, why would we let him die in your hands? The madman laughed, his words full of mockery. Dong Yuming was surprised. You don't even understand this. It seems that you really have a pig's brain. We found out that you were ambushing here because we were smart. It has nothing to do with the Underworld King. The madman laughed. It has nothing to do with the Underworld King. Dong Yuming's expression froze. Was he fooled by these 3? Unforgivable. Kill them for me. Following his roar, the 8,000-odd members of the Death God Army immediately rushed behind Dong Yuming. They activated their various ultimate mysteries, and the will of the heavenly Tao erupted. A terrifying aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas flooded the world. Angry out of humiliation, to be able to become the commander of the 10th team with such a brain, it seems that the Death God Army isn't much. The madman sneered, and the all-evil sword appeared again. Although on the surface he had a look of disdain, but in fact he was very cautious. The Death God Army still had more than 8,000 people left. Each person had 6 ultimate profoundness, which was a total of more than 48,000, and they all had the will of heaven. This was also a very terrifying number. Senior brother, you don't need to do anything to deal with these people. Save the power of all evil for the critical moment in the future. Qin Feiyong stretched out his hand to stop the madman and looked up at Dong Yuming's group. Although it had always been said that Qin Feiyong's strength could fight against 3,000 people, in fact, it was far more than that, because he had the ultimate profoundness of the law of life and death. Also, he had dual will of heaven. These 2 trump cards were able to increase his strength by a few times. Chapter 44:13. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to fight our entire team alone? Although we've already suffered many casualties, we still have over 8,000 people left. Who are you looking down on? All the members of the Death God Army were enraged by Qin Feiyong's actions. Boom! More than 48,000 ultimate profundities of supreme laws crazily attacked Qin Feiyong. The the sea region instantly evaporated. It was extremely terrifying. Congratulations, you've guessed correctly. I'm going to fight your 10th team alone. I want to see what else the Death God Army can do apart from having more people. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 3,000 clones behind him activated their ultimate profundities. 21,000 profundities, although the number was less than half of the opponent's. With the eruption of the dual wills of the heavenly Tao, the power instantly soared to another level. Dual wills of the heavenly Tao against the first-level heavenly Tao was definitely a 1 versus 2 situation. In other words, Qin Feiyang's 18,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities could match the opponent's 36,000 ultimate profundities. 18,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities already had such terrifying power, let alone 3,000 ultimate laws of life and death. The ultimate profundities of life and death were originally stronger than the ultimate laws and ultimate profundities. Coupled with the dual wills of the heavenly Tao, it meant that Qin Feiyang's 3,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities could match the 9,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities that contain the heavenly Tao. 18,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities could match the opponent's 36,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities. 3,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities could match the opponent's 9,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities. In other words, Qin Feiyang's 21,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities could match the opponent's 45,000 ultimate laws and ultimate profundities. In the blink of an eye, the ultimate profundities of both sides collided with a loud bang, and an earth-shattering scene instantly appeared. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions like a torrent. This scene had never been seen before. This was also Qin Feiyang's first time fighting over 8,000 experts who had grasped the heavenly Tao's will. Crack, rumble, ultimate profundities continued to shatter, erupting into resplendent fireworks. The void, the firmament, and the earth here were all beaten into chaos, as if the world had just been created. A contest. In the end, Qin Feiyang was defeated. Although he had 2 wills of the heavenly Tao and the life and death law's ultimate profundity were very powerful, his opponents were far outnumbered. His 21,000 ultimate profound meanings were equivalent to the enemy's 45,000 ultimate profound meanings. However, the enemy had more than 8,000 people, so they had more than 48,000 ultimate profound meanings. This was the difference in numbers. If the other party had 600 or 700 fewer people, he would have had a chance of winning, because losing 500 to 600 people was equivalent to losing 3,000 to 4,000 ultimate profundities. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of purple gold dragon blood. Qin Feiyang's face turned pale. Elder Qin, Little Qin Zi, Madman and White-Eyed Wolf were shocked. Don't panic. Qin Feiyang raised his hand to stop the 2 of them from assisting. He then raised his head to look at the remaining 3,000 ultimate mysteries. These 3,000 ultimate profound meanings were left behind by the members of the Death God Army, and they were charging toward him with shocking power. Although the members of the Death God Army had the upper hand, they didn't feel any joy at this moment. Destroying 45,000 ultimate profound meanings by himself. In the entire Divine Kingdom, apart from Lu Yuntian, who also had 2 wills of the heavenly Tao and the life and death laws, who else could do this? It was so terrifying that it made them despair. If it was a one-on-one battle, only Lu Yuntian could fight Qin Feiyang. However, they didn't know that Lu Yuntian, who they had placed their hopes on, was actually Qin Feiyang's inner demons. Such a terrifying person must die. This was the thought in the minds of Dong Yiming and the members of the Death God Army. Now, Qin Feiyang had only grasped 6 ultimate profundities, but he already had such terrifying combat strength. If he were to master all the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws in the future, how terrifying would he be? There were a total of 9 ultimate profundities, and they were respectively time, space-time, death, life, devour, karma, destruction, nothingness and light and darkness. It would be fine if this person did not have 3,000 incarnations. After all, it wasn't as if the central dynasty didn't have people who had mastered all the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. But, however, having 3,000 incarnations was a different story. Once the 3,000 incarnations were activated, they would be able to activate a total of 27,000 ultimate profundities. Coupled with the dual will of the heavenly way, the 27,000 ultimate profundities would be able to rival 54,000 ultimate profundities of the same level. If his ultimate profundities of the law of life and death were included when it was time, with Qin Feiyang's strength alone, he could fight against 63,000 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. 63,000 profound meanings. Based on the Death God Army's members, if each of them had 6 profound meanings, they would need 11,000 people. 11,000 people had already exceeded the overall combat strength of their 10th squad. This was because their 10th squad, including the 2 commanders, only had 10,002 people. In other words, once Qin Feiyang mastered all the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws, he would be able to destroy an entire squad of the Death God Army with his combat strength alone. What kind of concept was this? Just the thought of it made their scalps turn numb. Therefore, they were determined not to allow this person to continue to grow. Otherwise, who would be able to suppress him in the future? Die. Dong Yuming roared. As the power of laws surged out, all the ultimate profundities of ultimate laws were activated in an instant. As the commander of the 10th squad, he was naturally more powerful than the members of the Death God Army. He had mastered a total of 8 ultimate profundities of ultimate laws. In other words, apart from the law of light and darkness, he had mastered all the ultimate laws. The 8 ultimate profundities tore through the sky and followed behind the 3,000 ultimate profundities, charging toward Qin Feiyang. Do you think you can kill me just because you have a slight upper hand? Ignorance is really scary. There was a cold glint in Qin Feiyang's eyes. It was true that he was no match for these people in the collision of ultimate profundities. However, he still had the eye of heaven. Buzz! With a casual wave of his hand, a time formation appeared in the void under his feet. Roar! Following closely, accompanied by an earth-shattering dragon roar, the purple-gold dragon's soul roared out. The Eye of Heaven was instantly activated. Eye of Heaven! Dong Yuming was shocked. Eye of Heaven, coupled with the time formation, I am an invincible existence. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. In an instant, Dong Yuming's 8 ultimate profundities and the other 3,000 ultimate profundities were all replicated. Bang! 2 waves of ultimate profundities collided once again. Not only Qin Feiyang, but Dong Yuming and the 8,000 members of the Death God Army also spat out a mouthful of blood. Obviously, they were all seriously injured. The 10th squad of the Death God Army only has this much ability? Qin Feiyang spoke, his eyes full of sarcasm. Dong Yuming clenched his fists tightly. This person's strength had far exceeded his imagination. Such means could no longer be described with the word strong. It was simply abnormal. Since we have already met, leave behind your ultimate profundities. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. The 3,000 clones waved their hands, and a time formation appeared under their feet. Many purple-gold dragon souls roared out, and the Eye of Heaven was activated. What? Dong Yuming's eyes trembled. Qin Feiyang alone had activated the Eye of Heaven, and he already had such terrifying prowess. Coupled with the 3,000 clones, how terrifying would it be? Now, they did not dare to activate their ultimate profundities, because once the ultimate profundities were activated, the 3,000 clones would definitely replicate. This was not a matter of doubling or tripling. because each of the 3,000 clones could replicate their ultimate profundities. One clone could replicate tens of thousands of ultimate profundities. 10 clones could replicate hundreds of thousands of ultimate profundities. How many could 3,000 clones replicate? Unbelievable. Commander, don't hesitate anymore. Quickly take out our trump card. A member roared. Trump card? Qin Feiyang was shocked. What kind of trump card did this person have? Dong Yumming stared at Qin Feiyang and laughed. You're very strong, but in front of me, your 3,000 clones and Eye of Heaven are useless. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, a terrifying aura rushed out from Dong Yumming's body. Following closely, a 3-foot-long sword appeared. It was colorful and peerless. Is this a sovereign weapon? No. This is the origin force. Old Qin, be careful! Frenzy shouted. This was what they had been afraid of. Although their current strength was very strong, no matter how strong they were no match for the origin force of the divine kingdom. Be destroyed for me. Dong Yumming laughed fiercely. The 3-foot-long sword formed by the origin force crazily attacked Qin Feiyang. Before it reached him, the terrifying edge directly destroyed Qin Feiyang and the 3,000 clones. Let's go. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. He immediately activated his will of heaven and dual will of heaven, turned around, and rushed in front of Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf. He swept up the two of them and escaped without looking back. Why are you running? Aren't you very arrogant? If you have the ability, stay and fight me fair and square. Dong Yumming laughed wildly and chased crazily. So what if he had 3,000 clones? So what if he had mastered the ultimate profundities of the law of life and death? Dual will of heaven and Eye of Heaven? In front of the origin force, he would always be an ant. Chapter 44:14. What bad luck! I wanted to capture them and rob them of their ultimate meaning. But I didn't expect that bastard to still have origin power. The madman and the white-eyed wolf were both furious. How much origin power did the divine kingdom leave behind for the central dynasty before leaving? With the dual wills of the great path, Dong Yumming and the others wouldn't be able to catch up to them. But if Dong Yumming blocked the entrance to the central dynasty, then they wouldn't have any hope of entering. Little Qin Zi, think of a way. If we don't have the ability to fight against the origin power, it's useless even if we successfully enter the central dynasty. The white-eyed wolf frowned. If we don't have the ability to fight against the origin power, as the human sovereign said, then we'll be sending lambs to the tiger's mouth. The madman shook his head. You're thinking too much. How can we fight against the divine kingdom's origin power right now? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He wanted to shatter Dong Yumming's origin power with one punch, but his strength didn't allow it. The madman rolled his eyes and suggested, why don't you try using the origin power of the Black Tortoise Realm and see how much weaker it is compared to the divine kingdom's origin power? It's far from enough. Besides, it's not like you don't know. If I want to control the origin power of the Black Tortoise Realm, I first need that brat's permission. Qin Feiyang was helpless. The madman's mouth twitched. Why did it feel like Qin Feiyang, the ruler of the Black Tortoise Realm, was a bit useless? He didn't have any real power at all. You were so arrogant before, why are you running now? What a bunch of useless dogs. If you have the guts, fight us head-on like a man. Don't make us look down on you. Not only Dong Yumming, but the members of the Life and Death Army also clamored. Bastard, who are you calling useless dogs? The white-eyed wolf was furious. Calm down. They're mocking us because they want to provoke us to stop and fight them. Qin Feiyang comforted the white-eyed wolf and turned to look at Dong Yumming and the others, who were getting further and further behind. He sneered and said, You want us to fight with you? Sure, catch up to us if you can. So what if you have mastered the source energy? All you can do is watch us slip away right under your nose. Madman was also a very rational person. Not only was he not enraged, he even looked at Don Yumming and the others and retorted sarcastically, "I won't be angry. I won't be fooled. I'll anger you to death." This infuriated Don Yumming and the others. Very soon, the three of them shook off the group of people and stopped in the air above a small island. "Old Chin, why don't we think of a way to lure Don Yumming away and then hunt down the members of the Death God Army?" The madman's eyes flashed as he chuckled. Lure them away? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He frowned and asked, "Who's going to be the bait?" "Nonsense," the madman and the white-eyed wolf said in unison as they looked at Qin Feiyang. "You want me to be the bait?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Of course. You have mastered 2 wills of the heavens, and your speed is faster than him. If you don't go, are we going to go?" The white-eyed wolf was displeased. If he and the madman wanted to be the bait, they were simply courting death. "Don't be so unreasonable. Although I have 2 wills of the heavens, there is still a risk when facing the source energy." Qin Feiyang's face darkened. "Only with risks will there be gains." The madman laughed. Qin Feiyang's face twitched as he said helplessly, "Without my 3,000 incarnations, you can't beat the members of the Death God Army. After all, their strength has surpassed yours. Who are you looking down on? Do you think that I absorbed the evil force for tens of thousands of years in the Black Tortoise world for nothing? Let me tell you, if I go all out now, they might not be my match." The madman laughed. "Really?" Qin Feiyang looked at the madman in doubt. The madman said impatiently, "Don't dawdle. Just say it. Do you want to be the bait?" Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and nodded. "As long as you are confident in capturing the members of the Death God Army, I can be the bait. Don't worry. However, to be on the safe side, it's best to let Lin Yi, Demon Ancestor, and Mu Tianyang come out to help." The madman bared his teeth. With the help of Lin Yi and the other 2's battle souls, it would definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. "All right, but you have to ensure their safety. They haven't mastered the wills of the heavens yet, and they don't have much combat power," Qin Feiyang reminded. "Don't worry. We will protect them closely." The white-eyed wolf laughed. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? If you go to protect them closely, who will hunt down the members of the Death God Army?" Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and Lin Yi and the other 2 appeared. "What's wrong?" Lin Yi looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Madman, white-eyed wolf, I need your help." Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. When Lin Yi and the other 2 heard it, they immediately looked up at the sky above the sea in front of them. Their eyes were full of shock. More than 8,000 members of the Death God Army and the power of the Origin. This is too terrifying. You guys wait first. With more than 8,000 members of the Death God Army, even if we capture all of them alive, we can only get more than 40,000 ultimate profound inheritance. Is it worth taking such a risk? Mu Tianyang frowned. Ugh. Qin Feiyang, madman, and white-eyed wolf were stunned. "What's wrong? Is there a problem with my words?" Looking at the reaction of the 3, Mu Tianyang was suspicious. "I say, Brother Mu, your tone now is really worse than athlete's foot." The white-eyed wolf was speechless. Hey, hey, hey! How can you say that? What do you mean by my tone is worse than athlete's foot? You have athlete's foot. Also, according to seniority, you have to call me old ancestor. You actually shamelessly call me brother. Your face is really big. Mu Tianyang's face turned dark. This wolf cub, I really can't communicate with him much. He easily makes people angry. What are you bragging about? I call you brother because I think highly of you. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. His eyes turned slightly, and he bared his teeth. "Since you are so unwilling, I will just call you Little Yang from now on." "Get lost." Mu Tianyang gritted his teeth in anger. "Little Yangzi? Why not Little Musi? What an immoral thing." "Enough. Isn't it just a name? Why are you so serious?" The demon ancestor comforted Mu Tianyang. Wasn't he looking for trouble by being serious with this wolf cub? Actually, killing these people of the Death God army and depriving them of their ultimate profound is only secondary. The main thing is to weaken the strength of the entire Death God army. If we can wipe out the 10th team this time, there will naturally be less of a threat in the future. Qin Feiyang looked at Mu Tianyang and smiled. Mu Tianyang stared at the white-eyed wolf, then looked at Qin Feiyang and nodded. "This reason is more like it. However, Dong Yumming has the origin force. It won't be easy to get rid of him. As long as we can eliminate the members of the 10th team, it doesn't matter whether Dong Yumming is dead or not." Qin Feiyang smiled. "All right, then think of a way to lure Dong Yumming away. Leave the rest to us." Mu Tianyang took a deep breath. Having the strongest fighting soul wasn't a good thing. Without grasping the will of heaven, they would have to face the Death God army head-on. If not for the fact that they were all veterans, how would they have the courage to face such a terrifying Death God army? It won't be easy to lure Dong Yumming away. After all, he's not stupid. If you really can't do it, don't force yourself, the demon ancestor reminded. "I know." Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. "You guys hide first." "All right." The group of people nodded and immediately disappeared into the sea below. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he activated the 3,000 clones again. "Activate the concealment technique and hide." "Understood." The 3,000 incarnations nodded and activated their concealment arts, instantly disappearing without a trace. Qin Feiyang looked at the void in front and soon felt a powerful aura rolling over. He immediately activated the concealment technique and hid in the void. Not long later, Dong Yumming led more than 8,000 members of the Death God army and flew over. "We've completely lost track of their whereabouts. Commander, what do we do now?" An old man glanced at the void and frowned at Dong Yumming. Dong Yumming's face was gloomy and he snorted. "Their strength isn't that great, but their escaping skills are top-notch." Hearing this, the members of the Death God army couldn't help but smile bitterly, putting aside Madman Mo and the Golden Winged Wolf King. Qin Feiyang's strength was obvious to all. How could he say that they weren't that great? If it weren't for Dong Yumming's identity, they would have snorted. The only place they can go now is the 4 great continents, because they can't enter the Central Dynasty at all. Since we can't catch up now, we'll go to the 4 great continents to find them. I don't believe that they can disappear from the world. Dong Yumming waved his hand and the origin energy disappeared in his body. He then led the group away. "Do it." At this moment, Qin Feiyang's voice was filled with strong killing intent. Boom! The next moment, terrifying auras erupted one after another. Qin Feiyang's 3,000 clones appeared in the void at the same time. In an instant, more than 20,000 ultimate attacks appeared and crazily attacked the group. "What? He actually dares to ambush us here?" The group's expression suddenly changed. This person is too bold. In the face of the powerful origin energy, he still dared to do such a counterattack? It was completely unexpected. This person really can't be looked at with ordinary eyes. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.